apparently Arnold Schwarzenegger was who they wanted to play Perseus initially. They thought that had the look of a son of Zeus a little bit more than Harry Hamlin. I actually do think Harry Hamlin was the better of the two choices to go with, just
Mhm.
because when I think of Perseus, I don't think of like a Herculean person. I
What
think a lot more lean. I think a lot more athletic because you can't take on Medusa with bulging biceps.
Right. He's, Perseus is Heracles' great-grandfather? So it's
Oh, really?
Perseus, Heracles, and that's all the Agamemnon, it's all the Mycenaean or not Mycenaean, excuse me, the Mycenae line.
So I guess you could make an argument, but I still just think
Yeah.
that when you
I
read
like
like
Harry Hamlin as I
oh,
agree
yeah.
with you 'cause he's got it Perseus has to he can't look that big.
I think that the person that I clocked the most was Maggie Smith, who was I'm gonna butcher this name, but Festus, the goddess, but that's, Professor McGonagall and
Thetis,
yeah,
Thetis.
Thetis.
That's
Yeah,
Achilles' mother.
that's Achilles' mother. Well,
I tell you, it comes back.
it really does make it seem like that the Trojan War is the Avengers Endgame of Greek
Mhm.
mythology.
Dragon claw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
Welcome to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie and television podcast. I am your host, Bryce Wilson, and we have another very special episode with a great guest. We have Janelle Rhiannon, a trained historian with a master's degree in specializing in the political world of Alexander the Great. Janelle has transitioned from the ivory towers to the epic sagas. She is an author of the Homeric Chronicles, a series that weaves archaeology, history, and myth into a seamless chronicle epic. She also is the host of the Greek Mythology Retold podcast, a deep dive series that bridges the gap between ancient history and epic fantasy. By applying a unique lens to her work, she restores a vital balance between these legendary tales, giving equal human voices to heroines and heroes, whether she's exploring the brutal beauty of the Bronze Age or the humanity behind the myths. Her storytelling is a rigorous and passionate project. Janelle, we welcome you to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. What a way to end the day.
It's the best way to end the day. We're over
Uh,
here. We're just exploring ancient history, mythologies, all sorts of fun stuff. But I just would love to get to know you a little bit, as well as getting the audience to allow you to get to know you a little bit. What got you into Greek mythology?
Well, that's a great question. That goes all the way back to, grad school for me. I was studying Alexander under the late Diane Harris Klein, and one of the stories in Plutarch was that Alexander carried around a copy of the Iliad, and so I loved Alexander, and I thought, well, I was a little bit familiar with, Achilles and some major other Odysseus, major characters, but I hadn't actually read the Iliad, and so that was 30 years ago, and I wanted to read something that supposedly Alexander was so fond of. And that started it. And once I read the Iliad, I read the Odyssey, and then I've read like multiple translations and thought about it for probably the last 30 years. So, in my thesis chair, Dr. Victor Davis Hansen said to me one time, he said, you're an Iliad or an Odyssey person. And I think that question stuck with me my whole life. And I kind of flip flopped. I was really, when I was younger, I really liked the Odyssey because I thought the story was a little bit more like romantic or something. I was in my late 20s. What did I know? And then as I got older, I started to see how complicated that actually was. And I really like, I think now I would say my favorite, if I had to pick one or the other, is probably the Iliad. So
Well, off of that, I guess my follow-up question there is Hector or Achilles? Who do you prefer?
Achilles.
Ooh.
I prefer Achilles. I do. I find Achilles very complicated, and there's so many layers to what his character represents. So I'm working on a podcast right now comparing Achilles to Darrow in the Red Rising series. And Darrow and Achilles, they're both other. I call them the other hero because they don't really fit in one camp or the other. Achilles is mortal, right? But he has a divine mother, and he has the only dual fate of any character ever. He gets to choose, and he chooses and that's where the complication is. At any point, he could have left the war. And so, for all the reasons that he stays, what he eventually leaves for is what looks like rage, underneath that is uh, a deep grief, so that's much more complicated, you know what I mean? And so I see that as evidence of PTSD. Didn't have these names back then, but I start to think about that. So he wasn't really all the way mortal. He wasn't immortal. That was sort of the punishment for the prophecy about his birth. That's why Zeus would not do what Zeus does. Zeus wasn't going to get with Thetis. She loved Zeus. And, I think she was willing, and that was part of but Hera, there was the Hera part. But beyond that, she couldn't have a son by any immortal because that son was destined to be greater than the father. That's the
Yeah.
And so Zeus was like, you have to marry a mortal, and gave her to arranged the marriage with Peleus. So Achilles was greater than Peleus. He was greater than his father.
See, sorry, I'm still just caught up on you saying, like, that comparison between Achilles and Darrow because I just
Oh, yeah.
finished, Lightbringer,
Oh my
and
gosh.
at first, I am like, I don't necessarily see it," but then I really was as you were talking and explaining, it does make a lot more sense because even just the fact that Achilles wasn't like, yes, he was born and has, like, a divine but he was also created. He was dipped in the river Styx, and Darrow, like, yes, he was sort of superhuman when he was a red, but obviously Mickey carved him up and made him who he
Mhm.
was,
Yeah.
and there's also
That's why he's an other. He's
Yeah,
kind of red and kind of gold.
yeah.
He's
I'd
not
say
one or the other.
the sad thing is, like, he will never consider himself a gold in, like, the way you read it, but, like, when you see from Lyria's point of view, when you see from these others, he's not a red. Like, all the red has been burned out of him, all that anger and rage, and also and again, like, spoiler, before this turns into a Red Rising
I'm
podcast, what
sorry. I'm sorry.
like,
Sorry. I
we're
haven't finished Lightbringer. I'm
oh, you
halfway
have?
through no, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I know about Hangar 17B. Like, I've seen posts. I'm like, that doesn't bother me as a writer to know what spoilers are because I enjoy like the buildup of in the story.
Yeah.
So I know I already hate Lysander. I started hating Lysander. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack this to Red
No,
Rising,
no,
but
no. Please.
I started hating Lysander just when his stupid little comments that he would make about how he loved Cassius, but then he would be like, he just was for these mental jibes, at Cassius. And
I
I was like, yeah, he's gonna turn on you, dude. He's gonna so turn on you.
Well,
So,
again, like, sort of just again, I hate Lysander as well. This is
oh
a
yeah, we have to.
anti-Lysander podcast over here.
Yeah.
I do think one of my favorite moments in all of Red Rising is in Dark Ages, and it's
Oh,
when Lysander just had landed on Mercury, and Darrow and they hear the howls, and then when Darrow arrives, and I really like that imagery is almost what you feel when soldiers see Achilles. It's like he is a god of war. Like he is
mhm.
not the way he moves, nobody's able to move, and he is a demon at this point, and I am so excited for when they eventually do meet up. It's going to be so epic. But
It better
I
be.
do. It better be.
Better be, man. Well, you just said something that made me think too that Darrow knows he's good too. There's an arrogance about Darrow that is also what Achilles had because he knows he's good. What's he gonna do? Say he's not? Like,
Well,
oh, I'm not that good, everybody. Yeah, you are, and you know it, right? So there's an arrogance to that that's earned.
yes. I mean, is it arrogance? It's all that's the $1,000,000 question. Is it arrogance if you can back it up? Like,
Right.
or
Well,
I don't know.
when you're reading, it's like, "My fingers are so this, and, I'm fat, but he's fast, but I'm faster." Like, "Okay. All right, Dara, we heard you. We got we
Someone
got you."
loves themselves.
Yeah. But it's Achilles was the same way,
But again, like if they're able to back it up, does it
It's
really even
earned.
matter?
Yeah.
Exactly, very much earned. I do well, when you do finish Lightbringer, I'd love for us to have a conversation
Oh,
because I
yeah.
definitely want once Red God starts to get kicking, I wanna be really just doing discussions there because I've really loved this series and have such a
Yeah.
tie to it, and it's such a fun series. No well, there are dragons. There are actually dragons in the Red Rising universe, so there's an
Mhm.
excuse to talk about
He
it.
threw everything in there, man. He threw when there were the griffins on the where the ice where the I don't remember half the names of stuff that you know what I mean? Like, I need to when I'm done with Lightbringer, I'm going back to the beginning, and I'm just gonna, annotate and take notes. I can't
Mhm.
remember everything. But wherever the obsidians were, it was the ice planet, right? And there's griffins flying like, "What? Where'd you
I
get that, Harry Potter?" God.
Well, I again, there's so much lore that happened with the fall of Earth because they keep talking about how specific animals like lions and tigers and horses are actually extinct, but carvers created them and somehow brought them back from extinction. And so they also created
Jurassic Park.
dragons. Yeah, they straight up did Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to just ask one more Red Rising question. We'll
Sure,
eventually
let
get back
yeah.
to.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, yeah, you can edit this out if you want to, like, I didn't mean
No,
to
no, no,
hijack
no, no.
the Red
Keep,
Rising.
keep.
I could go off talking about Darrow and Achilles. I got a whole, like my brain is full of that right now.
Hey, I'll just we talked about for about an hour and a half when we covered the movie Enchanted, how it's a divorced dad film, and that's, like, all we talked about. We got
There
off the rails on that, so,
yeah. There was
uh,
a chapter called Achilles, and I don't know, I think is it in Golden Sun? I can't
it
remember
wouldn't
which one, but
surprise
there's a chapter called Achilles, and the references are there. And then there was what was the other thing? I just read it too in Lightbringer. Mustang is talking about how is it Valdir? The one
the
young obsidian that's in love with Darrow? Okay, so
yes,
she says Valdir loved Darrow the way Patroclus loved Peleus's son, and that's Achilles. So I'm like, again, he's getting called Achilles,
and again,
like directly.
we'll save the speculation
Yeah,
for later, but
yeah,
I do wanna just ask one Red Rising
yeah.
question because Lysander, in my opinion, like, yes, I hate Lysander, but he is such a fascinating character, and
Mhm,
in my opinion, I think Lysander is a better version of Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars universe. The way I see him is, like, he's very much like he is a quote unquote chosen one. He has some things that makes him special. And in his heart of hearts, he wants to do what's good, but at the same time, he's being led astray from both just how he was raised by the people around him, but also this over pompousness sense of destiny that he is. There's a lot of just a tragic figure that I view with him. Do I forgive him for all the stuff? Absolutely not. I won't forgive him for that. But there is this just level of I don't even want to say fallen angel because he never had really risen to the level of being an angel, but
mhm,
it's he like what do you think? Like again, like that's just
mhm.
my complicated relationship you might say with Lysander in the Red Rising series.
I think that remember that scene, it was in the episode 2 where Anakin and Padme were in the field with those weird looking they look like giant fleas, right?
Yeah,
Whatever those were. I don't know what those were, like flea anteater things. And they were talking about government and who gets to rule. And he basically said, yeah, if you're his what I'm remembering, I don't remember the words exactly, but what I'm remembering from that is he said if you had like a benevolent good dictator, somebody needs to set it right. One person needs to come in and like fix what's wrong. And she's
yeah,
like, "Well, who's that going to be you?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, maybe not me, but yeah, but basically, yeah, me." So I think that's very Lysander.
yeah.
And actually Lysander and Darrow are more like on that because Darrow thinks he's the one to set it right. Lysander thinks he's the one to reset it right. Do you know what I mean? Like they both think they're the one.
It's again such a like Pierce Brown just does such an amazing job with his character creations.
He
Like,
does.
I don't think there's a single character that I'm like, "Eh, that's a weak character." Like, the villains are like, I think Atlas is amazing. Like, I
Yeah.
love and he's so evil, but he's just so cold, calculated evil. But at the same time, he's like, "How am I worse than you, Darrow? Like, I've done
Yeah.
atrocities, but you've done atrocities to me. Like, where do we draw the line?" And it's like, again, that's something that I know Darrow does face, but he also has brushed aside so well that, like, he
Yeah.
has this attitude of, "I'm doing this for the greater good."
Mhm.
But at the same time, Darrow, like, if we were to just list off the war crimes, the evil deeds that he's done, and we've just even, like, took it ourselves out of the Red Rising universe and just described what he's done, we're like, "This is a warlord dictator who needs to be put down." It like, yes, what he's doing is for a good cause and a good reason, but it's very much one of those things of like, okay, when does I mean, I don't know if you've listened to Epic the Musical, but, like, when does a man become a monster?
Right. I think that's a big question because that's why war itself is complicated.
Mhm.
You start out with virtuous intent, right, to right a wrong that you see. You look at our American Civil War. We were righting a wrong to end slavery, but it didn't stop people from dying on both sides, and it didn't stop people from dying, being traumatized, being homeless,
Yeah.
arms and legs getting cut off. Like atrocities happen in war, and I don't know if and the reality of that is jarring. And I think Pierce Brown does a good job of showing, depending on which side you're on, right? Who sees it as a war crime. But that was what Dancer was getting a little bit concerned about. Arrow, you're not listening to the Senate. You're winging it a little bit. We didn't need
Yeah.
another Iron Rain. Stop it.
No, he definitely was just viewing himself above the fray and saying that he knew better. And sure, like
And
he
then he
had,
kind of did too. He's like, I told you guys so. I told you.
and again, like
Oh,
I think we just need to schedule another time for us to talk about
yeah.
Red Rising.
Oh, yeah.
We could
So, yeah,
easily
totally.
do that. But one more question for you before we dive into talking about the movie. And I know you said that the Iliad is very much your preferred between the Odyssey and
Yeah.
two. But do you have a favorite particular Greek legend or Greek myth that may not be classified within? Because I know Perseus is not in one of these two stories. It's sort of its own standalone. And I know that there are dozens and dozens of different legends, but do you have a particularly favorite or one that means the most to you?
I don't know. I don't know. Outside of the Trojan War, I don't know. The Trojan War is my favorite. Like,
I don't blame you.
and
It's
you
so
asked me my favorite. That's my favorite one. So, I mean, actually, I was going to tell you that Perseus is actually connected to the Trojan War because he's several generations before the Trojan War heroes, but he's kind of starts the heroic age. He becomes king of Mycenae, and that is the founding kingdom for Agamemnon. That
oh,
becomes the
really?
house. That becomes the house of. It's all connected. See, Trojan War.
The Trojan War, the answer to everything is the Trojan War here.
Yeah. Now I'm going to tell you another thing. I think that the house of Atreus. I was watching Dune and the Atreides, and I was like, wait a minute, that's the house of Atreus. That's the house of Atreus. Wait, that's Agamemnon's house. It is. And I was like, oh my God, everything's about the Trojan War. See, because it
Well,
is. Now that's why they're cursed. The
well,
house of Atreus is cursed. So
I can't remember where I was hearing this, but somebody was talking about how the Iliad and the Odyssey was like the very first comic book slash like that sort of level of like action-packed fantasy level story that had and like the level of like plot twists and hype that like there's
mhm.
very much a lot of, and I mean the Greeks love a good plot twist. Like the Greeks
Yeah.
do just love everything that sort of turns on its head, and they love tragedy. I mean, they would have loved a Game of Thrones. I'm sure that they
Oh
would
yeah.
have.
And I love Red Rising too.
They'd love Red Rising. Like,
And the Iliad is particularly violent. Like it talks about the spear went in his mouth and his teeth flew out, and the eyeball and the spear, just like brains flying out of their heads. I don't know. Just it's really violent, which reminds me of Red Rising.
no, it's, I mean,
Sorry, everything
no,
goes back to the Iliad or Homer or the Odyssey or Red Rising at this point in my life.
is Homer Pierce Brown reincarnated? Is that what
Well,
we know?
he did an interview or whatever, and there was the Iliad. I have the same copy that he does, and it was like on the back. I'm like, dude, I know you just read through that. I know you did. You just scoured it for information. But
Hey,
I could give you a prediction, but you want a prediction?
of course I want a prediction. Like,
Okay,
what
here's
else?
my prediction. Okay, so because of all of the Darrow Achilles parallel, that makes Pax Neoptolemus parallel. So in the Greek stories, it's actually Neoptolemus that defeats Troy. Odysseus has to go get Neoptolemus, bring him back to Troy because it has to be Achilles' bloodline. That's where the defeat has to come through, right? But Neoptolemus is a fatherless boy who grew up, and he's about 15 or 16 when he comes to Troy, and he's more ruthless and more frightening than Achilles was. And I think that Pax right now is Pax is special because he has he can fly. There's that one scene in Dark Age where he was flying and it was crazy, and then he got out and he took the pilot halo off, right? And everybody's like, who flew that? He was like skimming the water, and I'm like, I saw like, oh my God, that's Anakin, first of all. But so Pax is special, and he's off in that school right now. And I think that Darrow's gonna die. Darrow's gonna die before the war's over. That because Achilles didn't make it to the end, and so that's what's going to push Pax into the war. Pax is going to end the war. I think Pax is the red god.
I really like that theory. I want you to finish Lightbringer before I give off one of my theories because there's something that happens towards the end of it
Okay.
that is quite important for the story and what I think is going to be a big, big part of Red God. So once you
Mm.
finish, let it be know so we can go ahead and do that. But
Yeah.
are you okay if I introduce the movie that we're gonna be talking about
Yeah,
today?
let's do that. Sorry.
No, no,
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah,
good.
let's
Don't
do it.
Nana, we have Nana in the chat over here real quick. Nana is one of our longtime listeners. Like, oh, we stand Achilles and his boy toy over here.
Right on.
And then Nana's saying, add it to the list because the joke is like this podcast is not just a dragon movie podcast. It's a Attack on Titan podcast. It's a music podcast. It's a
It
like we
seems
talk about
like
everything.
your common thread is fantasy.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I
my
think
comic
so.
art is fun.
Because I
Like
was
we just
watching some of your stuff, so I got
oh,
you.
well, I appreciate it, but let's go ahead and introduce the film. We're going
Alright.
to be talking about the 1981 Clash of the Titans.
Mm.
Clash of the Titans is a 1981 epic fantasy adventure film directed by Desmond Davis and written by Beverly Cross, loosely based on the Greek myth of Perseus, starring Harry Hamlin, Jodie Boker, Burgess Meredith, Maggie Smith, and Lawrence Oliver. The film features the final work of stop-motion visual effects artist Ray Harryhausen, who also co-produced the film alongside Harry H. Shiner. An international co-production between the United States and the United Kingdom's Clash of the Titans was theatrically released in June 12, 1981 and grossed $41 million in North America in the box office, making it the 11th highest grossing film of the year. A novelization by Alan Dean Foster was also published in 1981, and a 3D remake of the same name was released by Warner Brothers of April 2nd in 2010. So before we start talking about specifics, Janelle, I'd really love to just hear your overall thoughts about the film.
I was watching it, and I I watched that as a teenager in the movie theater, and I remember loving it, at the time. And watching it, you don't realize how like that just the first off was the animation part, it's it looks cheesy now, you know what I mean? I don't know how to say, but I mean, at the time, I didn't think it was cheesy. At the time, I loved it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I thought this is a little bit cheesy, but it struck me, and again, as at my age, I was like, God, Greek myths are so violent against women. Let's just throw you in the in the little look like a coffin or something, just toss you in there. Like, let's let the dragon, let's let the monster eat you, and all the things like, ah, these, and not that that should surprise me, right? I've been, doing Greek myth and the Trojan War and the Odyssey forever,
yeah,
but
because Zeus great towards women. That's what I hear.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. So, but I still liked it. They really tried. I felt like they were trying to make it look like a Greek mythology. They were just telling the Greek myth story. Or just tell it like it is. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So,
Well, so I also really did enjoy it, and I don't know if you heard about this, but there was actually a lot of uh, I don't want to say issues, but drama because the owl Bobo is like they claim that it had nothing to do with R2D2 from Star Wars, but everyone's like
mm,
that's a rip off of R2D2, and I totally the second I heard him starting to beep, I'm like that's R2D2. Like what are we doing here?
yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the owl because in the Iliad and in the Odyssey, and this it's still I don't have an answer for this, and I don't know if anybody does, but in the Iliad, Thetis goes up to the oh my god, the god of the ford. So you put him get me on the
Hephaestus.
thing and Hephaestus, thank you so much. So she goes up there to get new armor for Achilles, and she's greeted by these robots, and it talks about the maids are made out of gold. They're made out of metal, and they're sentient. And I'm like, these are fucking robots. You know what I
Well,
mean? And then in the Odyssey, when Odysseus goes to King Alcinous's court, when the Phaeacians, and he goes to their court, there are these metal guard dogs guarding the palace entrance. And I'm like, this is the angel. What? So when I read that in the Iliad, it did make me think of this movie, and I thought, oh, the owl it's made out of metal. It's like a little mechanical thing. There were mechanical, autonomous robot maids in the Iliad. How would they even know to even describe that? Like,
so
you know what I mean? Like, that's
I'm
crazy.
I'm gonna put on my tinfoil hat real quick. I have
Okay.
a tendency to do that.
Do it.
But
Do
there's
you have an actual tinfoil hat? Let's see.
I don't have one. I'm just
Yeah,
wearing my dragon mask. I'll say that there's tinfoil on the inlining of it. But one thing that I have heard people talk about, and again, this is some ancient alien sort of conversation,
sure. Yeah.
but a lot of these gods, whether it's Odin in the Norse or it was, and I'm blanking on the gods, but like the gods that that Gilgamesh worshipped, or Ra, and like they all there's a belief that they were actually just an advanced civilization that had like modern level technology, but
Oh,
ruled over them and were essentially gods. It's the whole idea of like, hey, aliens built the pyramids. And like a
yeah,
lot of these people say, hey, it's not necessarily that they were aliens, but it was like a lost civilization that was having modern levels of technology or like generations above that. And when you read over these legends and read over them, and even just like how the god, and again, not going back to the Trojan War, but we keep doing it either way, but
right,
how the gods even are acting is they're almost like acting like us in like picking on their like, oh, I want the Bears to win. Like, no, we want the Packers to win. And they're like over
right.
there, and it's like
Yeah,
it's a game to them, and they're drinking
yeah.
like and they're like, oh yeah, let's go ahead and help them out. But they don't view the people as actual people. They view them as toys
Entertainment.
and entertainment. Yeah. And I do genuinely see that as like, hey, this is sort of like a way of like, if these were gods then we were their quote unquote children, you'd think we would have a little bit more reverence to them. But this is certainly more about just seeming like, I mean, even just looking at like the Hunger Games, I know we were talking about Red Rising, but I feel like this is more appropriate with the Hunger Games, just how the capital was viewing all of the other districts
Mhm,
fighting amongst themselves.
mhm.
And I'm not sitting here saying that I believe it, but I'm always like, "Ah, that's interesting." Like, I'm not gonna say
Yeah,
it's not true. I don't have the
right.
evidence to point that.
I wonder I don't think I have my I was looking, where's my copy of the Iliad? I don't know where I put it. So I'm like, I'll read it to you, but, I think so. That made me wonder because people can only but then I don't know, our modern technology, people are conceiving in the creative space of some wildly crazy shit that, uh, like, we're not supposed to, like, know about. Like,
Yeah.
are we manifesting that? But how do they come up with just sound like robots? I
Well,
well, my dad and then that reminds me of the book, The 12th Planet
that
by
one.
Zachariah Stitchem. I think that's how you say Stitchem. And he talks about the Nephilim and that they come
Mm,
around every, like, 3,600 years, and they created humans for as their worker bees, and we're supposed to be stockpiling the resources for when they come back around or something like that. And then in the Bible talks about the Nephilim as the angels, the fallen angels were having children with human women.
mhm.
Like, what is that? Stop.
Well, so there's I won't say that I'm an author. I just like to write for fun every so
Yes.
often. And there's a short story that I'm playing around with that I really want to. So just as some context, I grew up Mormon, and so I grew up with a lot of like the Christian theology, a lot of the Christian stories. And I'm writing this short story about how the devil is actually an AI system that determined that it needed to kill off humans, but it was created during these like ancient times, and
Yeah.
how God cast him out was he got rid of all of technology. And throughout the years, the devil has been like slowly influencing people so he can get back to this whole AI and like create himself like an Age of Ultron sort of situation. But he's
That's
actually an
like
ancient.
Sauron.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
so it's the whole idea is like he is like there is this devil who is an actual entity and idea, but
Yeah.
he's not able to have a body like it says in the Bible, and he's just trying to build himself up into this whole mechanical be and again, like, it's a short story, I don't know how far it is, but, like, I love a lot of, like, the theology and, like, the myths behind a lot of the Bible stories, and I love to
Mhm.
incorporate them into some of my fun writing there, and
That's
it's
cool.
definitely gonna be a little bit of a darker story, but, once it ever actually
Oh, they
happens, we'll
there a lot of fantasy stories are dark, right? And a
yeah,
lot of, like, the Old Testament specifically, dark. That's
yeah.
some you wrestled with God, you did what?
I mean,
Like,
one of my favorite movies
could you
growing up.
imagine wrestling around with God and the rocks and, like, doing all that? Like,
One of my
uh,
favorite musicals is Prince of Egypt, and that gets dark
yeah,
real quick in places.
yeah. The whole thing,
Sacrifice.
the whole story about that, the whole right? Just people
Mhm.
dying left and right, plagues, all the things.
And then the firstborn sacrificed
I
of the
know, right? Yeah, human sacrifice, and we could go back to Red Rising, but anyway.
it always goes back to Red Rising.
Uh, next week when we look at the movie.
Well, going back to the movie, I don't know if you heard about this or not, but apparently Arnold Schwarzenegger was who they wanted to play Perseus initially, but
No way.
yeah, they wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger because they thought that had the look of a son of Zeus a little bit more than, oh, I just had his name here, Harry.
Hamlin.
Harry Hamlin, which I actually do think Harry Hamlin was the better of the two choices to go with, just
Mhm.
because when I think of Perseus, I don't think of like a Herculean person. I
What
think a lot more lean. I think a lot more athletic because you can't take on Medusa with bulging biceps.
Right. He's Perseus is Heracles' great grandfather. So it's
Oh, really?
Perseus, Heracles, and that's all the Agamemnon, it's all the Mycenaean or not Mycenaean, excuse me, the Mycenae line.
So I guess you could make an argument, but I still just think
Yeah.
that when you
I
read
like
like,
Harry Hamlin as I
oh
agree
yeah,
with you because he's got Perseus has to he can't look that big. And I was thinking, was that when did Conan the Barbarian come out? Because
oh.
did they want Arnold Schwarzenegger because he had already done Conan? Because Conan was wildly popular.
So Conan
Teenagers,
up the year after. I think he actually turned down this role so he could be working on Conan the Barbarian.
okay. Because I remember watching Conan going, dang. I saw that in the movie theater as a teenager. These were the films that we saw, you know?
No, they're I love it. But I mean, like, so I was doing my best to just clock the actors. I'm like, okay, what have I seen them? What else have I seen them in? And I think that the person that I clocked the most was Maggie Smith, who was I'm gonna butcher this name, but Festus, the goddess. But that's Professor McGonagall, and
Thetis.
yeah,
Thetis.
Thetis.
That's
Yeah,
Achilles' mother.
that's Achilles' mother. Well, I don't
I
believe it.
tell you, it comes back to the Trojan War. Everything goes back to the Illuminati. It's all related. They're all related somehow. It's a spider web of connections, you know?
Well, I mean,
So,
it really does make it seem like that the Trojan War is the Avengers Endgame of Greek
mhm.
mythology. It all
It
just
is.
goes to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the aftermath is what Odysseus does, you know,
Mhm.
is that Menelaus is still doing his there, you know, and it's during Menelaus is actually in the Odyssey, so because Telemachus does have to go talk to him, which is
Yeah.
why Troy I don't mean to talk we're not sorry, we're supposed to be watching a movie,
No, no,
but
no, no, no.
that's what I hated about the movie Troy. They killed Menelaus. Like, oh, you guys are so dumb. Who wrote this? What's his name that did Game of Thrones? You wrote this, you idiot. How do you kill Menelaus? He's a star player. He's in part two. He has to take Helen back to Sparta, and then Telemachus has to come and talk to you. And like you blew it. That's a whole big old thing.
Well, I am definitely excited for the Christopher Nolan Odyssey. I know that there's a lot of the purists that are online saying that the armor's not accurate, but I'm like, hey, like, Christopher Nolan gets the pass over here, like with how
Yeah,
great of a story is.
I'm probably gonna have a love-hate relationship with it. Like, I love and
Oh, really?
hate Troy at the same time because they butchered the story so much. And as for somebody who knows like, that's what the purists are, we just know the story. It's sort of like, you know, what the last I can't even call them Star Wars movies, but the last 3 with Ray, like, what? She's a Palpatine, get out, stop, I can't, get out of here, you butchered it. Like, there was this whole canon of stuff, and you just went off on this tangent. And so those of us who really like Star Wars and have been like, you guys are really hard to please. You know what? We've been reading these stories and books and comic books and all this stuff for the last 30 years. And then you gave us that?
So I
Ah.
completely understand where you're coming from there. I will say, like, my point of reference where I think that it's going to actually end up being really good is The Dark Knight is not that accurate to the Batman comic books, but
Mhm.
I think the way that Nolan's tells the story of Batman is just so compelling that I know that there's going to be changes and I know that there's going to be inaccuracies and I know that there's like honestly the biggest thing that I have an issue with is I just don't think Matt Damon's going to be like aesthetically he doesn't look like an Odysseus to me. Like I think that they needed to get somebody else, but and also and again this is Nana, don't hate me over here. Nana's going to probably get mad at me for saying this, but I'm not a big Zendaya fan. I think that she was skyrocketed to fame a little bit premature and like she's good. She's very talented as an actress, but I don't think that she is I
I'm
don't think she go sorry,
I'm underwhelmed by the costumes, like, underwhelmed. You know, that's
even
something about the
not
movie that the mo and it has not I could live with the not if you look at real Mycenaean armor, it would have been very impractical to maybe have actors move in that, and, you know, so it's sort of like they had, like, rings,
they look like
like, their
tin cans,
body
right?
yeah, kinda. But that and they had, like, bone tusk, like, helmet things. I mean, this is thousands of years ago, and
Yeah.
they were they weren't dealing with steel, they had bronze, that's why it's the Bronze Age, but that was,
There's
so
only so much you can do.
I'm kind of like, "Well, it's alright, I guess. I could live with some of the armor." I'm not a big, Batman fan, but I did watch the Batman, the one where him and Superman is it him and Superman fight?
Yeah, Batman
Is
versus
that
Superman.
okay, that I did see that one. So,
That I definitely prefer the Nolan
I
Bat
don't know
Bat
which one the Nolan one. Who is the
that
Batman?
that was Christian Bale was.
Okay, I like Christian Bale. I like Christian Bale as an actor.
And then did you see Oppenheimer?
Yes.
So Christopher Nolan also did Oppenheimer. So he's done, and I really liked Oppenheimer. And I love history. I mean, that's going to be coming up a few
And
times here. So
that was pretty Oppenheimer, they showed the complex character with him.
which that's why I'm excited because I mean, Odysseus is also a very complex character. I know there's a lot more complexities
Mhm.
within Iliad, but Odysseus goes through like again, I love Epic the musical. I don't know if you've listened to it all the way or not, but
Not I just maybe the first episode about where he's agonizing over does he kill Astyanax or not.
I've like Nana and I in the chat here, we have listened to that thing probably hundreds of times. It was the most streamed songs for us during our Spotify Wrapped. I understand that it's not for everyone, but I also just love how I think the way they portray Zeus is like so accurate, where like the voice is just so powerful and like almost every word, like he can
Mhm.
make even like commanding someone to death sound sensual, like for whatever reason, like, I genuinely think
I
God that
mean,
Zeus is the god of sex more than Aphrodite is the god of sex.
yeah. He's definitely that. I don't read a lot of Greek myth retellings or listen to stuff because of what I write. So
Yeah,
I avoid that. I read the primary sources or I read essays about like the Trojan War. So I stick, you know what I mean? Like, cause I don't want to be influenced by other,
just modern. Yeah, I mean,
you know
I
what I mean?
totally because as I'm like, I could see myself being influenced because I'm like, no, Odysseus did not sleep with Circe. I saw the musical. He definitely did
Yeah.
not sleep with Circe. While everyone's like, yeah, he.
Yeah, he did. Well, it's Cersei's son that kills him.
It's yeah. Jorge just ignores that part of it over there.
Yeah. Well, that's the telegony. So there's a whole story of Odysseus after he goes back to Ithaca. Everybody ignores pretty much most of that. Madeline Miller touched on that in her book Circe. So like I know that I've read like little bits of that and I'm familiar with that. But so Odysseus, about a year later, he leaves Ithaca and he travels north and he meets another queen and he goes back to war basically. And he ends up marrying her. He has another son. So, and then he eventually makes his way back to Ithaca and he leaves his son with the mother because he figures that that's better, right? But that's the story. And then when he gets back to Ithaca, it coincides with the the son that he had with Circe, who's about 15-ish, 15, 16. These boys are doing a lot of stuff at 15, 16. Like Neoptolemus, like, y'all you didn't have a father. And so they're just like, grow up fast. I don't know. But
Yeah,
Telegonus comes to Ithaca. He doesn't know his dad. He's looking for his dad. Odysseus thinks a raider has come to attack Ithaca and they wrestle and then he kills Odysseus with the poison stingray thing. And there's that moment of recognition. Oh no, dad. Oh no, my son. So
that's
Odysseus is tragic, his end.
not to go back to Game of Thrones, but that sort of reminds me of Bale the Bard. Is it Bale? No, no. Is it Bale the Bard? One of the bards. It's the story of like how the wildling came back and mentioned that, well, he seduced the Stark's daughter, had a child with her, and then that child eventually became the Lord of Winterfell. And he led an army against the wildlings and killed him. And he didn't know that it was his father, but the
I don't
wildling king.
remember that story.
It's a
That's
story. It's a story that. What's her name? I'm blank. Why am I blanking on? She's
is
one of
it
my
the
favorite.
is it Nan?
No, it's a story that John is being told by his wildling girlfriend.
With the red hair.
Yeah,
Egret. Egret.
Egret. So she's telling the story of like, hey, she's telling John like, hey, you're one of us. You're a part of the wildlings. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm a Stark. Then she tells him this story, and
Yeah.
it is one of those like just tragic stories. But also, she was pointing out that the wildlings are a part of the First Men. So like, we're going all over the place over here.
Sorry.
No, no, don't be sorry.
one of the things that I love to do, because I teach high school, and so sometimes like I take my student, I teach juniors and mostly seniors, but I teach a history and film class, which is like
Okay.
the funnest class. So I teach them a lot about history, and then we watch a film. And we talk about like what's accurate, what isn't accurate. So I give them a lot of background about things that they haven't thought about, or that isn't covered in like a regular history class. But I'll go off on these and I connect all these dots. And then at the end, when I'm done, I'm like, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Sorry. Sorry, you guys. Or sometimes I'm in the middle of it, and if I can catch myself, I'm like, trust me, I'm going to circle back. I'm going to get there. Hang on, almost there. Because this is literally what happens.
Well, Nana will be the first to tell you that we should just call this podcast Circle Back, because we have to do that so many times here. But speaking of circle back, let's go ahead and circle back.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah.
There's one other fun fact that I wanted to go over before we actually dive into the individual chapters, and that's the actor of Hephaestus in this movie is played by Pat Roach, and he's not necessarily a household name, but his most famous role is he's the giant dude that Indiana Jones fights in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he gets chopped up by the propellers. I had no idea that that was him until I looked at his filmography, because he looks nothing like that in this movie.
That's crazy, right? I never would have put those two together.
No, like
I never would have thought. I never would have said, "Oh, that's funny." But I can see the propellers in my head. I can see the scene. Chop, chop, chop,
well,
chop,
he's
chop.
jacked in that movie. He's
Yeah,
huge.
I
But
know.
in this movie, he's just like just with his screwdriver, not really that menacing.
How do you get older and then get more jacked? Like that is.
As soon as I find out, I will let everybody know, but there will be signs over on my part. But Janelle, if it's all right with you, I'd love for us to jump into chapter 1 and just start talking about the movie.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Righty. Chapter 1, The Curse of the Gods. King Achilles of Argos imprisons his daughter Nea. After Zeus impregnates her, the king casts her into the sea in a chest. In retribution, Zeus kills Achilles and orders Poseidon to release the Kraken to destroy Argos. Danae and her son Perseus float to an island, Sephoros, where Perseus grows into adulthood. Calibos, son of the sea god Theseus, is transformed into a monster by Zeus after his atrocities. Theseus transports Perseus to an abandoned theater in Joppa, where he meets Ammon and the soldier Thallo. I don't know what it is about Hollywood, but some weird fact and thing that I've seen is they always portray Poseidon looking younger than Zeus. Zeus always looks to be the oldest of the gods. And I'm like, no, he's technically the youngest of like the major six, at least. I don't know why and as we'll be seeing next week when we talk about the most recent version, I feel like Hades looks younger than Zeus in that. And this version of Zeus definitely looks older than Poseidon. I don't know if that's just a slander towards the king of the gods over here in the modern time, but do you have any like insight on why they try to portray Zeus in such a way?
I have no idea. I don't know why I don't know why they make the gods look old in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, because they should be, they're immortal. Why are they aging? Why do you look like Santa Claus? Or like, why? And then, but when you read descriptions of like Thetis, for example, Achilles' mom, she's described as like beautiful. And so the goddesses are all described like as they're young. So like in the movie Troy, they turned Thetis into a grandma looking lady. But I think that she would look perpetually, by her descriptions, right, in the myth, that she would look perpetually, like 30 or something. And so at some point, her and Achilles look the same age, because she's not like, why are they aging? But no, I get that. Like, I don't know why they always make Zeus look, the gray beard and all I don't know.
I really don't understand it, because I completely agree. If I were these all, like, I do say, like, and again, I don't know if you've read these books, and I'm not expecting you have, but I loved the Percy Jackson books and think that they're really fun. And I think the way that they portray the gods is probably the most accurate. They always portray the gods like in their mid 30s, sometimes in their mid 40s, where they are just in their peak adultness, you might say, but also just still powerful looking and just have a level of like commanding the room. And I think that makes so much more sense than just being like somebody in their 70s with this big white beard with long, like, but also I can totally see where in ancient Greece, it's sort of like the mythology of like how if you were fat, that was a sign of wealth. So maybe it's also an idea of like during the Bronze Age, if you're old, that's a sign of power because if you did get to be that old, that was an accomplishment back in the day.
Yeah, that you would have wisdom or something,
Uh-huh.
that you'd earned it. But if I was immortal, I would just wanna stay in my perpetual prime. I don't know.
Yeah. I'd be okay with my brain being back to when I was 24, 25.
Well, I would wanna have my brain, the brain I have now. I would prefer that brain because it is wiser, but I prefer to still be 30 and my knees don't hurt.
Well, here's the thing. If you have to be 30, but your brain is 30 again, do you make
Mm,
that trade or do you value that knowledge? Maybe that's the
m
trade-off.
maybe that is a trade-off. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd wanna live my 30s over again. Maybe. Maybe my 40s.
We'll negotiate down to there.
Yeah.
I also do love that they made Perseus sort of a himbo. He's very charming, but he's so dumb in this movie. Like I love him, but he's just like, is that shield talking over there? What is that? Like you're the son of Zeus. You should be a little smarter than
Yeah. Did they show the Pegasus in this movie before he killed Medusa?
they.
Because
So
that's not supposed to happen. Because the Pegasus comes out of the blood that Medusa sheds after he cuts her head off. The Pegasus pops out of that.
So, and I also know that I'm looking at the wrong spot. The Calibos, who is Thetis's son, he's fake. He's not in the Greek
Correct.
mythology.
Thetis
And
did not have any other children besides Achilles.
so, and I do think that he made for a fun villain throughout this. He
Yeah.
definitely was a little bit more of like, just like a more of a background. Like, not like a big antagonist that's like a big boss fight, but he was more of like a troublemaker.
Yeah.
But that's why he got cursed. That's because he killed all of Zeus's Pegasi. That's what caused him to get cursed and look like that. And the only reason that Perseus got the Pegasus is because he was following the vulture. And
And what I was thinking, Perseus was like, he was like, "Oh, that's a Pegasus." Like, how do you not know what a Pegasus is? I don't know. I just remember that scene, but I was going back to like that he was kind of a goof, like a
yeah,
goofball.
he's hot. And that's all he's got going for him in this, which,
And
yes.
isn't he married to Lisa Renna in real life?
Let's see. Harry Hamlin, Ursula Ander.
Is that who he's married to?
That's who he was married to. They were only married for 4 years, it looks like. Or
He's
oh
not the
no, no,
one.
no.
He's not married to Lisa Renna?
Yes, he is. He is married to
Okay.
Lisa Red. I was
Yeah.
looking because he was also married to Laura Johnson, Nicolette Sheridan, and she was partners with Ursula Andress. So
How many was that? 5?
3 people he was married to, and then a 4th he was a partner with. And he was a partner with Ursula while this movie was coming
I was
out.
gonna say it's kinda Zeus-ish.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we will never see like a truly accurate depiction of Zeus of the depravities that he took part in, but
Mm.
I do think that this did a good job of not whitewashing Zeus. Like they were not afraid to be like, "Oh yeah, he's just going around sleeping with mortal women. He is."
And he's assaulting them. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not just there were some, like Thetis like she wanted to be with Zeus, I think. That was much more mutual, but for the most part, like, he was assaulting women and in a sneaky way, like, let me just get some like he did with Perseus's mother. I think it was a golden rain for her. So
Yeah.
and then, like, with Leda, it was a giant swan. And we tend to romanticize that. That's not romantic. That's
No,
terrifying. That's
Zeus,
terrifying.
Nana is saying here in the chat right now that Zeus is the god of man whores over here. So
I see that. Yeah. So, Zeus yeah, I think they do a good job with the Zeus character. I
because they
like how they
also
did all of Olympus.
yeah, Olympus was beautiful. Like, I am something that just consistently comes up on the podcast is I am such a sucker for practical effects. Like, I loved how they were doing a lot of the movies in the 80s and in the
Mhm.
90s, where it was a lot of like the costuming, a lot of just the sets that they would build. I still point at the Never Ending Story as one of the most beautiful sets. Like, it's just,
That
it is
that
such a, it's sad. It's a sad movie, but
was a
again,
good
like,
movie.
And also Dark Crystal. I think the Dark Crystal has some beautiful, and I think that CG, and we'll talk about more CGI versus practical effects next week because
Yeah.
we'll be talking about the CGI version of this movie. But I think that there's just, I mean, I'm showing my hand. There's so much that they miss out on just strictly going with
Mhm.
CGI. And
Mhm.
I mean, and again, like call me a purist, but I really think that CGI was like almost the beginning of the end of, and almost, I don't want to say heartless, like
It
soulless, like
makes it so clean sometimes. Sort of the difference between an AI piece of art, which, there can be some real beautiful fantasy imagery, right, with AI, but it's not the same as when an artist does it. There's something, like, crisper about it, and I
Mhm.
think, the CGI, and I think CGI allows people to get directors or whoever makes those decisions to get lazy about it.
Yes. Like, there is a level of artistic talent that goes into making these CGI because there still is a human who's producing this. But at the same time, like, if I were, I don't know if you did you see the Netflix TV show of Dark Crystal that was released, I think in 2019? It was
No.
the
I only saw
Netflix.
the original one.
Well,
Is that what
it
we're
was,
talking about?
I'm not talking about the original one, but it is based
Okay.
off it. Netflix decided to release, they did a puppet version. They still did everything the same. They built the set, they did all puppets, but it was so expensive of a show that they had to cancel it because they decided to go in. And when I heard that they'd canceled it, I was just so heartbroken because if
Oh,
you go back and watch it, it is just such a beautiful TV show.
I'll
I
have to
really,
look at that.
I strongly recommend that you check it
Yeah.
out because it is just such a good show, especially if you liked Dark Crystal.
Mhm.
And it's the way that they, some of the puppet effects that they do is absolutely insane. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Team America done by the guys who did South Park, or
Is that the claymation thingies?
they do puppetry as well. It's
Oh, are they
the,
marionettes?
yeah,
Okay.
and the creators of South
I
Park.
think they freak me out. I think because I remember that it was adult. It wasn't like kids, but it kinda creeps me out. I don't like marionette things, and I think that goes back to Chucky, like the original. I don't like it. I don't like the claymation one things either. There's like a I don't like any of that. Yeah, I don't like that. It's weird to me. It's creepy. I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, both claymation and puppetry, when they've talked about, it's so expensive to make movies like that because you want it to still look good and you have to get these, like, it's such a niche project that there's only a couple hundred people that actually still do it. And to get the best of the best of the people that do it, they cost so much money. So the creators of South Park were like, we're never going to do a puppet movie ever again because it
That
was
was
so insanely expensive.
wow, I didn't know that. Is that
But
what was the owl a puppet
I
in this
think
movie?
it, I
What's the
don't
name?
know,
Is Boobo or Bobu?
Bobo.
Bobo, yeah,
It was either
but
a puppet or it might have been an actual automatron, but I'm
okay,
not sure. I'll
'cause
look
that
that.
he's, like, sticking it up on the tree and it's doing its thing. I really like that. I like the mechanical thing.
Yeah.
I like
Well,
them.
I again, like, some of the effects were a little because they made, what it was his name? They made Klabos, like, half the time it looked like he was in prosthetics, and the other half of the time, he looked like that clay version. I don't know if you know, especially with the Pegasus, it seemed like half
Mhm.
the time it was just a close-up shot of the horse, so you didn't see the wings, but then when you did see the wings, it almost looked like a claymation version of
Yes,
the
you could
Pegasus.
tell. Yeah, that's the cheesy part.
Yes.
You know, it's like having somebody play the piano and you show their hands and then you pull back and you just see like here and you don't see the hands because they're not really playing like, you're tricking this. Yeah, it's a trick. We don't really have a Pegasus.
Before we jump into part two, chapter two, I did also want to point out, so the Kraken, they actually reused a lot of that in a previous movie that was, there were two movies that it was actually reused from. It was reused from a stop motion film that was called 2 Million Miles to Earth. That was a 1957 movie. And then it was also used in Sinbad, The Eye of the Tiger in
What?
1917. They definitely used it over and like replaced it and cannibalized a lot of it, but they were reusing this.
Like an actual
Yeah, the actual figure
crazy.
was,
That's crazy. Because
now I
the
don't.
opening shot when you see the Kraken coming, and it even has the roar that sounds just like Godzilla. I'm like, they
Yeah.
can't do a roar, but I'm like, that's Godzilla. And at the time, I didn't think that it was God's. I don't remember thinking that when I saw it. 30 years ago as a teenager. But it did strike me like, hey, that sounds like Godzilla. Did they borrow the
Well,
sound effects too?
probably did. It does seem like there was a lot of controversy, nothing that stuck, but a lot of people were angry at this film because I think they were just like, "Oh, we'll use a little bit of that. We'll use a little bit of that." But did they not ever hear that imitation is the best form of flattery? Like,
Right.
what's going
Hey,
on over here?
and that movie was aimed at teenagers, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So at the time, we loved it.
Well, I still like, again, when we talk about the film, like I'll discuss it in more detail, but I still really enjoyed this film. I know that there's a lot of people that struggle with just the level of technology that we have today in the movies that were created. Like, obviously, if you put this next to Dune 2, like people are going to go to Dune 2 every single time. But I
Yeah.
still think that they're fun in different ways. Like, I still will love and go see the Dune movies, but I'll also enjoy and watch this just because there's a level of art that we just don't see anymore that's in
Mhm.
these movies.
Mhm. Are the worms dragons?
Hey, I'm gonna make
Do I have to boycott Dune 3 because Timothy Chalamet said he didn't wanna do ballet or opera?
well,
And
if he
and you
didn't
know his mom is my understanding is she's a professional ballerina. Like,
really?
yeah, his mom's a ballerina. So I was like,
Oh.
"That was rude."
Well,
If he was my son, I'd be so mad. Why'd you say
well,
that?
when you're at the top of Hollywood like he is right now, he sorta gets to do what he wants, but
He's and the thing is, people are like, "Oh, he's young." He's 30 years old. Like, you're a man. But he acts like he still looks and behaves, it seems like a teenager.
yeah, he
Uh,
looks like he's
just
21, like,
I know,
tops.
he's 30. And I was surprised, like, "What? Oh my god." That's
Well, he also is
people
dating
stop
a Kardashian.
That's true, that's true. But because 30 is kind of that age, isn't it, where people start holding you accountable as a true adult? Like, you could make bad decisions through your 20s and people like, "What?" But by the
Here
time you hit 30, it's like, 30 to 40, you can't be doing dumb
here's
stuff anymore.
I agree, but it does seem like that age keeps getting pushed back because I was jokingly I saw a post on Instagram just the other day that's like, "Hey, I was told I need to have everything figured out by 30 and really start my rural life, but after I turned 30, I decided to take 2 more shots and say 10 more years and we'll figure it out." But
Fortunately, we're not living that much longer to take your time. At some
yeah,
point, you gotta figure it out. I turned 60 and I was like, damn. Like,
hey,
the time is finite, man. It's finite. Like, I'm not, if you live to be 90, like, that's great. So I'm like, I might have 20, 30 years left on this planet. I ain't fucking around.
hey,
No.
just treat every day like a gift and it will always be a party.
Yeah. Except today
Uh,
at work, that wasn't a party. The longest day ever. 5 minutes. God, that 5 minutes was 3 hours long.
I do wanna highlight a comment that, one of the chatters, David, just said. He's
Okay.
saying, "Bobo is mostly stop motion done
Okay.
by the legend Ray Harryhausen," which I think this was his last film that he did, so there was
I
a lot
read that too. Yeah. Yeah.
so
I wonder where it went.
I bet you that it's in a collector's room somewhere. Like, I'm sure there's so much of the props that are just
It's probably
tucked
in a
away.
it's probably in a box, like, collecting dust that doesn't have with that somebody forgot about. Because
Hey,
those
that
warehouses are or somebody will find it at a yard sale for $5,
then sell it for 15,000,000.
right? That's what I would do.
Oh, exactly. I don't need that owl in my house. If it's all right with you, I'd love for us to jump into chapter 2 of the film.
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty, chapter 2, The Quest for the Gorgon. Zeus
Mhm.
sends Perseus the helmet of Athena, the sword from Aphrodite, and a shield from Hera. Perseus captures the winged horse Pegasus. He follows the spirit of Princess Andromeda and learns the answer to the deadly marriage riddle by Cabos. At the wedding, Queen Cassiopeia claims Andromeda is more beautiful than Thetis. The goddess demands Andromeda to be sacrificed to the Kraken as punishment. Athena has Hephaestus build a mechanical owl named Bobo to lead Perseus to the Stygian witches. The witches revealed that only the head of the Gorgon Medusa can kill the Kraken. Perseus travels to the river Styx to find her. I really like what's going on in this, but there's also so much that I'm just like, it seems like the movie's just going all over the place and having a hard time just connecting everything. The whole riddle thing definitely felt Rumpelstiltskin-y to me.
Well, that was that's the Oedipus, because Oedipus had to solve the riddle of the Sphinx to save I can't remember what the name of which city it was, but that's how he solved the riddle of the Sphinx for the city and married the queen who had been recently widowed because he finds out later, right? You know the story. And so he finds out later that the old man that he killed on the road was actually his father and that he had actually married his mother.
Just
So
classic stories like that.
yeah. So, but I mean that's very Greek. That's very
Yes.
Greek to be solving riddles and
And bringing incest into the mix.
bringing incest into this. Yeah, but I felt like I feel what you're saying. I think that they were trying to put like all of the stories into one, and this was before. So in the '80s, we didn't have a lot of, like, is it DC or Marvel? Like, what is it? Like, there's so many. I can't even watch them. Like Endgame, the next Endgame, the we're
Yeah.
alive now, and the other Endgame. Like, God, really? Just end the freaking story. Is there an end? But we create like, oh, next one, the next one, the next one. But they weren't really doing that in the '80s. So maybe they just felt like they had to cram it all into one movie.
Yeah, and there's also an argument to be made that a lot of these stories are, I don't want to say there's not as much. Like, obviously, the Iliad and the Odyssey have so much content that you can create a movie or even a series to discuss it. But there's a lot of these legends that are more like a TV episode than anything.
Mhm.
And I mean,
Just the
again,
whole story with Perseus and Medusa, that could have been a whole movie to that.
yeah.
Because Medusa had a whole backstory. She wasn't always, she got cursed by Athena. So there's so many layers. That could have been that's a whole movie. But you're right, like they could have Netflix that in a whole season.
And it's funny because, like, there's so many times during this movie that they seem to go away from the actual legend, and it doesn't really make sense why they decide. Like, the whole, like, they said Aphrodite is the one who made Athena. I'm not that made Medusa what she is, and I'm like,
No, yeah. No, that's not correct. I'm not misremembering. I'm pretty sure it was Athena. Because
no, it was.
Medusa was a priestess actually in Athena's temple.
Well, that's what they, for whatever reason, they in this
Yeah.
movie, and again, I'm saying that this movie is wrong. This
Yeah.
movie was saying that she was a priestess of Aphrodite, and the
Yeah.
reason that Aphrodite cursed her is because she and Poseidon had sex in Aphrodite's temple, and so they were like, "Okay, well, boom, cursed."
Yeah. I guess Aphrodite is they're just trying to if you want to throw all the gods in there and hope something sticks, like throwing spaghetti at the wall. If we just give everybody a little bit of this and a little bit of that, maybe what'd you say they made $41 million?
Yeah, $41 million
And you know
from.
what? How much did it is there any cost about, like, how much the movie cost? Did
Let
they
me go.
because if they
Let,
grossed, if there was that 41 was the profit, you know what I mean?
let.
Like, that would have been
Yep.
big money in the '80s.
So the movie cost $9 to $15 million to make. So
Hmm. That was a good that was a good profit for back in the day,
yeah, it said
I
it was the
think.
11th most profitable film of the year that year.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm curious to see what other movies would have made
Yeah,
more money.
what were the other I'll tell you because I was alive. Like, I was a teenager watching movies, I'll tell you. You know what?
Let's see.
That's when Excalibur was out too. God, have you ever seen Excalibur?
I don't know if I've seen Excalibur.
You have got to see Excalibur. It was my first rated R movie, and I think and it was back in the time where I'm definitely aging myself, but when it says rated R 17 or older, I had to have somebody come and buy my ticket. I had to pay for 2 tickets, and I think it was my older sister came and bought a ticket, and she didn't wanna see it. Of course, I did. She had to buy it like she was gonna go with me because the salesperson wouldn't sell me the ticket, so my sister had to come down. She wasn't gonna let her buy 1 ticket because she knew I was gonna go in there without somebody who was 17 or older. So I had to buy 2 tickets. It was a thing to
Well,
see this movie.
just talking about ratings and how different it is. I was, because the movie's PG, and I was just taken aback because there's 2 moments that there's straight up just tits in the movie, and
And yeah.
I'm just like, can you imagine a PG movie nowadays that just like
Oh, absolutely not. Oh, no. No, no, no.
that would not
I
fly out?
No, nope. I teach the history and film class as the upperclassmen, and there's still, we the district has a list of movies that we show, like Braveheart's one of them. and it's early on, and I don't really know the kids, and I still have people sign permission slips. I send everything home with parents, like what things are rated. But there's that in Braveheart in the wedding scene with the side boob, and I was like, I can't sit in this room. I could watch somebody's head get cut off. I could watch something get blown up. I can't. I don't know. And it's like I slide past stuff because there's no need. And I have like teenage girls. Like I'm not trying to make. I don't want anybody feeling uncomfortable about stuff like that. There's an Amadeus is on our list, and there's a boobs are out. Yeah, I slide
The
over
ru
that. We're not watching that.
the rules were different back then for
They
their
were
movies.
they
But
were. And what any TV shows too,
oh, yeah.
like Shaft and all those shows that we were watching on TV, and just everybody's running around. It was just the stuff they said. It was crazy.
It was
It
the
was
Wild
more
West.
rated R. It was more like rated R, like light rated R stuff.
Now, I did pull up the list of the most
Okay.
profitable
Okay.
films of of 1981.
Okay.
Do you wanna take a guess on what movie it is? I'll give you a hint. We've talked about it during this podcast today already.
Star Wars?
It
Was there a
wasn't Star
Star Wars?
Wars.
I don't know. What did we talk about?
Da-da-da,
Indiana Jones. Was
Raiders
it
of
the
the Lost
one?
Ark.
Yeah. Is it the one where it was it the first one or the second
It's
one?
the first one.
First
It
one.
was the
Okay.
first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one grossed $212 million for in the
Wow.
box office, and then
Wow.
Golden Pond was number
Oh,
2,
I remember that one.
and
Yeah.
Superman 2 was number 3.
Okay.
So,
And that was back with Christopher Reeve,
I think so, yeah, let
right?
me
That
let
was he's
yep,
always gonna be he's always gonna be my Superman. He's
he's got the
original.
look.
He
Yeah,
was it. He was the guy, and his story was so tragic. That horse riding accident.
yeah.
Remember? And he had the spinal cord injury, but he
Mhm.
was Superman, man. He was the guy.
Really quick, going back to the conversation there, David pointed out Fantasia, where it features bare breasts, retroactively was given a G rating, so that was a
What?
G.
Just showing all the kids everything.
Hey, the kids gotta learn. They gotta learn.
No, no, no. I'm glad they toned that down. No. But I think in the 80s, you only had G, you had PG, and you had R, and you had I guess we called it X, but nowadays they don't call it rated X, they call it like NR or something like that.
I
What
think, well,
isn't there like a different
there
there weren't a lot of categories then, so it's like, well, they showed some breasts, but that's not really rated R level. So
so from what
no
I
wonder.
understand is that NR just means that there's not a rating associated with it, while X is specifically like it's still movies, but it's built around like pornographically shown
Yeah,
things.
because
So there,
not rated and now we call it mature.
yeah.
Now we say it's rated mature. So if it's
Mhm.
mature, it's gonna have all the things. All
It's
the
gonna have a
things. Like Spartacus. Spartacus has all the things. That was a lot of things, man. That was a
great show,
lot.
but a lot of things.
That's a lot of things.
I'm guessing that's not showing in
My
plus.
no, absolutely not. My grandson is 16 and a half, and so he was like, "Hey," they call me Nona because I'm Italian. And Nona, let's watch the 300. I said, I don't know if I could watch that with you. And the only reason is because there's the scene
Yeah,
with him and his wife and like the
with
where
Cersei from the Game of
yeah.
Thrones.
Yes, that's right. And it's kind of like, I
Like,
don't know.
"Nah, I'm
Yeah,
good."
I'm good. And we could watch about I said, Nona's gonna fast forward over a part. And he's like, Nona. I said, I can't, I'll just have to go outside. I just can't. So anyway, he said that he goes, it's all good, Nona. I watched it with my dad, but that's fine. I
It's
mean,
like you
Nona,
can
it's
continue
different.
to do that. It's
I just,
not good.
I'm not doing it. Lord. But
But
anyway.
going back to Clash of the Titans,
Oh yeah, back to the circling back.
circling back, but I actually really liked Charon, their depiction of Charon. We only got to see him for a little bit, but it's just literally the Grim Reaper that's at the boat and he's got the Skeletor hands and he's just taking the coin. And I just think it's really fun how they're using that practical effects for him. And it's
That's
just a
good.
really fun part of it.
Yeah. I think the effects, the parts that are cheesy, but like you said remember, okay, I'm gonna go back to like the statue of Thetis when the head pops off, like
Yeah.
the whole wedding thing, and then it gets the close up and it looks like it's like marble and pretty soon the eyes pop open and then she's gonna talk out of the statue. Like that would be so terrifying when
Yeah.
you think about it. Like, what they were trying to depict, I don't think they were I think that call it cheesy because of all the CGI and the way we are able to do effects, but in the '80s, like, those were the effects. Like, that's
Yeah.
how they did stuff, but when you think about how frightening that would be if, like, the eyeballs of a statue open up and
Yeah.
starts talking to you, so that was supposed to be scary.
Now, I do wanna ask this, and if you're not quite sure of the answer, no big deal, but I just am curious off of it because we see that in this movie, but then also in the Disney Hercules movie, Zeus possesses the big statue of Zeus, and that's how he talks to Hercules in that movie.
Mhm.
Does that happen at all in actual Greek mythology where the gods almost possess statues or idols of them to communicate with humans, or has that just been
No.
completely Hollywood?
That's Hollywood. They in the Iliad and they just the gods just show themselves, like
Interesting.
and sometimes they don't necessarily show themselves, but that you hear them. You know what I mean?
I
So
no,
the gods manifest as a form to people, like when the goddesses presented themselves to Paris, "Choose us," there was out in the field somewhere where Paris was, it had nothing to do with the temples.
like, I totally get that, but there is a level of, like, artisticness that I do enjoy, of, like, the idea of especially maybe, like, that's could almost bleed into why they made they took such care to carve those marble statues because some of the most insane marble statue carvings come from Roman and Greeks
Mhm,
culture and just the level of detail. So there's a part of me that sort of loves that, like, Hollywoodization of, like, the
mhm,
gods possessing the statues, but
mhm.
it's interesting that that's just something that Hollywood has created
That's a
on their own.
Hollywood that wasn't in the myths, I can't think of any. I have no story like when Athena pops down in the battlefield, she's the one that's telling Hector that she presented her they'll present themselves as another human in
Mm.
a human form, like, Athena presented herself as a man, a mentor, I can't remember what his name was. Maybe it was mentor, but, and then she also presented herself as Deiphobus to Hector to get him to stop running away from
From
Achilles, and
yeah,
so
no.
I'm just they weren't statues, but they did manifest as human beings.
To that point, like, it did look a little janky, but, like, if we think about that, if we were there and experiencing and just this massive idol just fell apart and then the eyes just open up, that would be so terrifying. That's like
Right?
Sinister the movie Sinister stuff.
That's why I don't like claymation and I don't like, marionettes because of the doll
Yeah,
that came and was it Chucky?
yeah,
And it
Chucky
was the
the
one
doll
that was, like, chasing the lady around, Linda
with a knife.
Black, with a knife. That freaked me out, man. I don't like any of that.
Sure.
All the doll
It's
things. I didn't even buy my daughter got this one time, her grandmother bought her one of those, like, life-size plastic dolls. I put that in the closet, and I got rid of it.
locking that
Yeah. It
away,
was, like, the
burning.
same size as my daughter. I was like, "Absolutely
Oh,
not. This is terrifying." I won't go in the attic either, because the scary stuff lives in the attic. In the
yeah.
cornfield, stay out of the corn, 'cause there's all the scary stuff is in the corn, and it's in the attic. Stay away, and
Uh,
dolls.
hey, that's good rules to live by over there. But if it's all right with you, I'd love for us to close out chapter 3 if
Let's do it. Yeah, yeah.
alrighty. Chapter 3 The Triumph of Perseus. On the island, Perseus kills the two headed Diocus. He uses the reflection of the shield to look at Medusa indirectly, decapitating her. Calibos punctures the bag holding the head, spilling the blood to create giant scorpions. Perseus kills the scorpions and finally slays Calibos in a duel. Perseus collapses from exhaustion but is restored by Zeus. He reaches Joppa just as the Kraken is summoned to claim Andromeda at the sacrifice rock. Riding Pegasus, Perseus uses Medusa's head to turn the Kraken into stone, causing it to shatter. Perseus and Andromeda marry. Zeus forbids further vengeance and places their likeness in the sky as a constellation.
Mhm.
I have to say the most janky of special effects, I think, come from when Medusa's head gets cut off, and it's literally like a goo that's just coming out of her. I'm like, it's not even blood. It's like toothpaste coming out of her neck. And I'm like, we didn't have anything else?
I know. Well, and they had to make those scorpion things pop out because 'cause they'd already
Yeah.
They made Pegasus already a thing.
Yeah. They had to make that.
You kind of ruined the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they really did. Like, I don't I know they were trying to make it so that they didn't have to worry about the like fast travel. They wanted it to be
Yeah.
able to do there. David's over here saying that he loves the Medusa sequence, which I do love. I think this is one of my favorite depictions of Medusa. And I also really like this because, and I'd love your opinion on this, in almost every media that I have seen of Medusa, they always still make Medusa beautiful, but with like snakes in her hair. And
Mhm.
again, like that's not accurate. Like Medusa was cursed to be hideous and ugly, and they made her hideous and ugly in this, but as we'll see next week, they make Medusa hot. Like still.
And I think that's to pay, some sort of homage because she was a beautiful young woman, and
Yeah.
she was cursed by Athena after Poseidon assaults her. Was Poseidon, right? Or what?
Goose.
Yeah, it was Poseidon, yeah. So, P after Poseidon assaults her, and then Athena gets angry, right? So, now she's cursed with to be a monster. But I
Yeah.
think modern retellings have leaned toward the feminist retelling. They want Medusa to have reclaim power because there is an injustice, right? Like how she's cursed by a female, like a goddess, for something that wasn't her fault. And so that's really there's a lot of patriarchal layers in that story that I think modern retellers are trying to maybe right that wrong, if you will. You know what I mean? And make her beautiful, but with the snake hair. Because I just interviewed an author, Ayana Gray, who wrote I Medusa, and so, that just comes off that conversation.
Well, I do think that it makes more sense, like the idea of a punishment. If Medusa was this beautiful, beautiful woman, and again, if I'm being evil over here, I think it's almost appropriate. Like, okay, you're so beautiful, you're using and like maybe, and
Mhm.
you get that sense that that beauty was more of the insult to Athena than
Yeah.
like,
Well, she did that to Arachne too.
yeah.
She turned Arachne, and that was because Arachne was bragging kind of that she was a better weaver, and then she was, and then Athena was like, "I'll show you." Turned her into a spider.
Now, I might be completely off base in saying this, but somebody said that there's only one of the main Olympic gods of the 12 gods that actually is good to women or quote unquote good to women and respects women, and that's Ares. Is that true? Or because in every legend, it
Mm,
seems like that they say that Ares, like, and again, I don't know if that's true or not because they say that Hades technically kidnaps his wife.
right. Well,
And
Ares uh he has that affair with Aphrodite,
yeah,
so that's a little questionable.
who doesn't have an
Uh,
affair at the gods realm?
I
Let's
don't
be
know, I know. But I was trying to think, has Hephaestus ever I feel like he was very respectful of Thetis.
maybe
I don't know,
Hephaestus.
maybe
But
Hephaestus, because I don't
is
know.
is Hephaestus just asexual? Is he just not interested in
No,
sex
he's
at all?
married. His wife is like Charlico, but she was
Well,
like
isn't he married to Aphrodite?
yeah. Or was that his maid? I thought he's married to Aphrodite, but maybe he kicked her to the curb. Well, who threw him down the mountain?
Hera.
Hera threw him down the mountain, and he had a gimpy leg. So after that, he was kind of gimpy. He was the gimpy god.
So, and again, like not to tie, but
I don't
I
know.
this is a theory that I absolutely love, and I think it might end up actually happening in the books, but it might not. But in a Game of Thrones, there's a theory that Gendry might not actually be a bastard of Robert Baratheon, that he might actually be a legitimate child of Cersei and Robert,
The
because
black-haired
Rob
baby, the
and
black-haired baby that she talked about in the beginning.
and Zeus and Zeus is very much Robert in a Game of Thrones, and Cersei
Mhm.
is very much Hera, except for the whole
Mhm.
cheating thing. We'll,
Mhm.
we'll get past that there. And but again, like she just hates Robert so much that she tosses their baby out, being Hephaestus,
Mhm.
and Hephaestus is the god of the forge, and Gendry is a blacksmith. So there's a lot of
Right.
belief that Gendry is going to be like in the show, he gets legitimized to become a Baratheon, but there's a belief that he's actually it's gonna come to light that he really is a Baratheon and
But do you
he'll be
think
able to,
Bran's not gonna step off? Somebody who's gonna rule? Maybe he could rule after Bran dies.
well,
Bran's
I
not
think
immortal, is he?
well, I mean, Blood because he's Bloodraven's apprentice, and Bloodraven seems to be like near immortal or something like
He was a
that.
guy, but was he in George R. R. Martin's universe? Was he like 1,000 years old or something in the tree? Remember? Like, how does he stuck? He was stuck in the tree for like eons, it seemed like, right?
Yeah, because he's the hand. So the hand of the so spoiler alert for the Seven Kingdoms listeners here, but Balon, who just died in A Night at the Seven Kingdoms, he was the hand of the king. And the person who eventually becomes the hand, who replaces him as hand of the king, is Bloodraven. But that's because Bloodraven is alive right now and he serves as an advisor because he
Mm.
turned traitor against his bastard brother, Damon. So he's at least, because I think this happened, I did the calculations. I think that this happens 90 years, no, 80 years before what takes place in the books of A Song of Ice and Fire. So, and he's already like 30 years old in the book. So he's going to end up being like 130 to 150 years old by the time we get to where Bran is in the books. Obviously something is extending his life. I don't know if that's the tree. I don't know if it's being the three-eyed raven, but something is going on to just continuously do
It's
that.
like the Dunedain
Yeah.
in Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah. I mean, there is something to the Targaryen blood where it's somehow it is magical and there's things that happen to it. And maybe this is just one of it where it just extends his life an
Mhm.
unnaturally long time.
Mhm.
But again, we could get sucked down that rabbit hole just as quickly as
All
we
the
can.
way, all the way. I know. There's so many things. Let's
Oh,
bring it
it's
back. We can circle back to the Trojan War now. Is it time?
what's Darrow up to? What's Darrow
Yeah,
doing?
what's Darrow doing? Yeah. All right. So we were on the third act, and we were talking about. I, for, I forgot.
Yes. So we're talking about it. And this moment in particular, when Cabos goes and punctures the head, that is the most like he's supposed to look like the devil. He's got the horns, he's got the goat feet, and he even like has a trident, like a pitchfork hand. And when he goes in there, like if he would have done a little like like it would have been totally and he's just being he's being a menace.
That's a good word. A menace. A
Because
menace.
he's not being a villain. He's not like going and like slitting their throat. Because if I was like in a Greek tragedy, I'd be like, all right, guys, they're asleep. Kill them. Like, don't go
Uh-huh.
and like just go in.
Mhm.
But instead, he's like, let's cause some problems.
Yeah,
But
that's true. That's true.
and I also don't understand why, because I thought for a second that the scorpions must have like stung Perseus or something because he was like crawling and then he collapses. I'm like, did he get stung? And I went back, I'm like, nope, he didn't get stung. And it's literally like he just was exhausted. And I'm like, Perseus, get up, drink a 5 hour energy and get up. We got things to do. What
It's
are we
not
doing?
over yet. We gotta get we gotta get to the Kraken. Get
Yeah,
Kraken. Get
yeah,
Kraken, Perseus. Is that why
and
we say that?
I
Get
maybe
Kraken? The Kraken. That's what I'm gonna think about now.
get Kraken to the Kraken.
Get Kraken. I have to show my students. Here's a Kraken. Get Kraken.
It is so interesting that we have such an image of, and there has to be just so many different versions of the Kraken throughout mythology because obviously we have the giant octopus.
We have there are sea monsters, but I don't know if they're like described in a Kraken. I don't think the Kraken's not a Greek myth anyway. Creature.
No, because
But
I
there
think
is
it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, there's because the sea monster comes up out when who was the Luakuan. And so there's a famous art piece of Luakuan and his sons where you see like a serpent coming up and it looks more like snakes, coming up and getting him and his two sons. But that's the part of the Trojan War story where they're trying to decide what we do with the horse and do we drag it in, and Luakwan starts telling the truth like, no, this is not a gift, we can't bring it into the city. And so a sea serpent comes up and gets him and his sons, and then King Priam interprets that as, oh, he must have been lying, and the gods took him away, so now we have to take the horse into the city. That's a sea monster. And then there was another sea monster that was supposed to eat Hesione, which was King Priam's sister, and that was before but I don't know about a Kraken. I don't know what the sea monsters are supposed to look like.
Well, Nana's just pulling it up here, asking if it's Norse, and I just pulled it up, and it is Scandinavian folklore. And a lot of people actually believe that Vikings saw a giant squid, and that's where the legend of the Kraken came from.
Yeah, because those
Because
are huge.
Yeah, they're massive, and for the
Yeah.
longest time, it was thought to be a cryptid. It only, like, actually got confirmed that they exist, within the last, I think, like, 20 or 30 years, so
Mhm.
it's really fascinating there, and I also think, like, in this particular story, leviathans have been popping up in mythology for years, like, they're even in, like, biblical and what's the word? Like, just, like, in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran, like, leviathans pop up, and
Mhm.
like, the Kraken in this movie matches a leviathan so much more in description because leviathans are described as just massive sea beasts. There's not really a description whether they're
Mhm.
serpentine
Well,
because there's something. Go ahead, go ahead.
no, do you, I mean, I wonder if I have I could just be totally talking crap, but I'm wondering if ancient peoples found any giant bones, like dinosaur bones, and
Mhm.
they would know it would be legitimate because they would have no way to fake that back, like nowadays we got all kind of people that are, make fake shit all the time, right? But if they were
Yeah.
to find some sort of petrified giant footprint, or if they found like just a giant bone, they found some sort of dinosaur bone or remnants of a dinosaur, they would think, "Oh my god, this belonged to a monster," and
Well,
build a story around it.
that's the belief of the Cyclops. A lot of people believe that they were woolly mammoth skulls that they discovered, and they were like, "Oh my god, like, this is a monster." Because if you look at just the skull of a woolly mammoth, it does not look like well, even just an elephant skull, but woolly
Yeah,
mammoth skulls are just significantly larger than the elephant skulls.
yeah.
So, they also were thought that the skulls were dragons like Nana just highlighted there, and, I mean, there's one kid who's going viral, and he's my hero. There's no validity to what he's saying, but it's still my hero. And he's like, hey, he's like, if dragons existed, you can't say because there's no fossils of or skeletons of dragons as an excuse because they would have hollow bones like birds and they would degrade a lot faster. And especially if they did breathe fire, there would probably be a chemical in their body that would break down their bones even faster. Again, this kid's
Mm.
probably like 14, 15 years old, but he's my hero because
See?
he's advocating.
At 15, they're doing stuff. If I if I can't be if I can't be sacking Troy at 15, so I'm gonna say some things about dino bones. Did you see that Netflix has a new show called Dinosaur? I just
Yeah.
saw it today, and they have the whole narration, like, what I saw was the dinosaur, and whatever the dinosaur was, it has to, like, bring the shark to it, and it has to be really still, and they're putting this whole, like, these stories, like, how would you know how it hunted? You would not know that this big old dino stuck its head in the water with the mouth open with a dead fish down there. You have no idea that that's how they hunted. You just making stuff up, Netflix.
I love those so much because I love dinosaurs, but
Yeah.
bear with me. I don't know if you ever saw this, but there was a Netflix show that they're like, "Hey, there's these planets that scientists have discovered that have the possibility to have life on it." And they're like, "Okay, they're like 380 light years away, and from what we can tell, it has a gravitational pull of this." And so what they did essentially is they made this like planet Earth style for what they think life is like on these planets, and it's the weirdest show ever where it's
Uh-huh.
like showing these like almost like manatees that are flying, and it's like the Klonokonok is over here and it will look for its prey and it will dive there with the guy. I'm like, what are we talking about?
Some NASA engineer space is like, that it can't fly unless it's Darrow. Maybe it has grav boots.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, what scientist is on mushrooms over here? Like, guys, let's just make a show about these manatees that fly.
Yeah, and let's narrate it like we're Morgan Freeman,
And
live on
Nana's
the planet.
So Nana's highlighting there, but there's this guy who's going. So they're saying bones can only tell you so much. You have no clue for the vast majority of dinosaurs. But
Yeah.
there's this Instagram guy. I'll have to show you his stuff because it's
Okay.
absolutely hilarious. And he has like these pictures of dinosaurs, and he's like, "Yeah, the T-Rex, it would do this, and it would do this, and it was known for this." And they're like, "How do you know this?" You're like, "Well, the bones say that they'll do this." And they're like, and also the T-Rex, they love skateboarding. They love skateboarding, and it's the bones. The bones are
The
telling us
boats.
this, and it's
But that's literally like, we have no idea what they did. I the
yeah,
and but we present like the scientists present, well, you can present like what you think they did, but you really don't know. Like, how would
yeah,
you know? For all we know, that T-Rex just laid on its side and animals ran into its mouth. We don't know.
e
Like,
exactly.
and
We
why
don't even know if
and
T-Rex
it
was a
had the little
reptile.
I would laugh if they found like We think this T-Rex anyway, T-Rexes had wings.
T-Rexes were dragons.
That would be a dragon.
Well, the
But can
funny
you
thing is, like,
imagine? Well, we can't decide what's the planet. If it's is Pluto not a planet? Is it a planet again? We don't know.
well, there
It's
is a
just
lot of people I've talked to people, and they actually dragons a lot of dragon lore comes from people digging up dinosaur bones or
yes.
dinosaur
Yeah.
fossils, and that's what they interpret it as dragons. So, a lot of people there's a lot of, like, people that are like, "No, dinosaurs is a modern term. They're all dragons." And I'm like, "Well, I love dinosaurs and I love dragons, and I wanna keep those loves separate, so let's have 2 categories for that."
Right. But it had to come from somewhere. And if you found big bones, you would think you can make it a case that that's a dragon
Well, and especially,
upright.
during the Bronze Age specifically, there was not a lot of travel going on. Like, people weren't going up to Europe. People weren't going like, you could only go so far to Europe before you got
People
attacked or you
stay
go.
yeah. Well, that's why when they went to the Trojan War, they weren't that far away. The Aegean's not that big of a sea. It's not like
Yeah.
they were crossing the Pacific,
Mm.
like going from California to Hawaii. That's in the middle of nowhere. When if you look at a map, you think, "Oh my god." But the Aegean wasn't that big of a sea, but they were gone for a decade,
Well,
raiding. They were basically they were pirates, pretty much. They were Mycenaean
exactly.
pirates. So
Going back. We're
I
going back.
know. Sorry. But you knew what you got when you got me. Yeah. What did we cut? What was there something else in part 3 that we needed to like touch
I'm
base
just
on?
looking over my notes here. I it was definitely a shock to me that they had Andromeda, like, that whole bathing scene. Again, like, just the full nudity that was going on there, and I don't like, I've been trying to research and find out, like, was that actually the actress who played Andromeda, or did they get a body double? Because
Mm. It
that's
wouldn't.
Oh, go ahead,
I
sorry.
know. I don't know, but body doubles are still a thing. A lot of actresses still and actors still use body doubles. So
Well, I mean, specifically with Game of Thrones, a lot of the prostitutes, as well as just the women that were naked in the show, they would go and hire actual porn stars to do that, because a lot of them, they felt they're fine. They're comfortable on camera. Just they're like, "Hey, if I'm getting paid to look like I'm having sex, I guess it's better than getting
I
paid."
did not know that. I did not
Yeah,
know
there's
that, but that makes
a
sense.
yeah, a lot of the prostitutes in the whorehouses were actually porn stars that they had hired for,
I'm gonna
and
have to
it's
go
just
back and Google that now. But
Oh, I
that
recognize
makes
her.
sense because a lot of there's a lot of actresses specifically that, they might earlier in their career, they're okay with, they feel maybe pressure that they have
Yeah.
to like show body parts or whatnot. But then after they establish themselves, they don't want to do that anymore, or
Well
have a body double.
well, and that's where I'm wondering, like, with this particular actress, because back then, I mean, they didn't have the editing that they do today, so I'm wondering if she was like, "Hey, this is a big enough role. I'm okay with just full sending and going with it." But I also don't it's not like it was literally just her stepping out of the bath. I'm not saying that that's not nothing, but compared to what could be going on there, but at the same time, this is PG, like, this is
Yeah, but that's fine. I think they had a scene like that in the movie Helen of Troy, where she's naked and she's walking through the feast or area and like all the suitors are looking at her. And I just remember seeing that. I feel like that was on TV. But I just remember going, "Whoo!" But
like, they're doing it.
yeah, but it was different in the 80s. It
Yeah.
really was different because they wouldn't do that now.
No.
That was a big deal on Titanic, and Titanic was PG-13. And
Yeah.
Kate Winslet had a body double for that, and it just showed like it didn't even show. I don't remember if it showed her or showed the naked breast or just him drawing it. I can't remember. But anyway, I just remember that was a thing. Oh, it's PG-13.
Yeah. It's just crazy, like, the how far we're going with it, I guess.
Right. Well, in the back to the Trojan War, the Odyssey movie was that 1998 version. It was the TV one with Armando Santi. Calypso was almost half naked most of the time. It was very like, whoo, for TV, that was a little risque, a little bit right there.
They were
You
just
weren't,
getting accurate with it.
are you, you're wearing some threads? You better weave those together. But like, there was a lot of, they were trying to make her look naked most of the time, I thought. And even Armando Sante, basically, he's running around in a loincloth. I just remember for TV thinking that that was a little bit because I don't have freshman English this time, but freshman English does Odyssey and like we'll watch chunks of the movie, but we never watched that part with
Wonder
Calypso
why.
because no. Because the freshmen can't handle even no, it's too much. But
It's
yeah.
way too much for them.
Yeah. Well, so would
Well,
Clash of the Titans, way too much. But I think they don't think of butts as being very sexual, I guess. And I guess
yeah,
it depends on how the body's being presented, if it's just sort of factual. Because we watched with my seniors, the film we just finished was Dances with Wolves, and you see his butt. And I just remember even then the shock went around the room. And I was like, oh,
well,
I should just slide over that part. I just don't like the kids to feel uncomfortable. And they're 17, 18, but still you know,
it's weird. Yeah.
it's weird. It's shocking. Like, why did they have to show his butt? But it wasn't,
Well, I was reading this article recently that was just talking about like what has been fetishized about like what has been like the culture's fetishization. And it was talking about how like in the 90s, like big boobs, like that was the big fetishization. And it wasn't until like the late 2010s and to now when butts were really considered like a sexual, like the
yeah,
primary focus.
yeah,
So if you look at these movies before 2010, it's not that people weren't attracted, but it wasn't like the sole focus, like
right.
how other
Well,
parts
people,
were.
I mean, if you go to a beach or you're out in public, there's, people wear thongs as a bathing suit. So the butt cheeks are, I mean, if you're at a beach, you're going to see butt cheeks,
Yeah,
but maybe it's not the same as showing, it's just different. We're not European in America. We're
we are
not we're
definitely
not
here.
into we don't have the topless bathing. We're not nonchalant about that.
Yeah, we're a lot more concealing over here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just yeah, I would say that.
Well, is there anything else in chapter 3 that we'd like to talk about before we go to our dragon grade?
I was gonna say I thought one of the corny claymation, whatever, the vulture.
Yes, the
That
vulture
was
just looked
so
bad.
corny. That was terrible. It would have been better not to show anything, just to like there's like this big clay foot or what I think it clay? That's what it looked like to me. But
Well,
that was so funky.
maybe I just don't understand, but they had a live owl that they had trained. How hard is it to train a vulture? Like, I'm not saying that the vulture would actually transport it, but you can use effects to make it look like the vulture is carrying that. And maybe
Something.
vultures are stupid. I don't know. Like maybe they
Yeah,
don't.
and their vultures are massive. They are
Yeah.
so massive. So I came across I don't know what you call a group of vultures. There's a word. Like a murder
Let's
of
see.
crows, but there's a word for a bunch of vultures. And I was walking my dog and I saw these giant things, and I think they were turkey vultures. They were huge. And so some were on the ground, and I swear that like on the ground and some were up on the grape vineyards, like the vines, but I swear they were like 3 feet tall. Just like they were massive. Anyway.
So it's saying here that when they're just together in a clump, they're called a venue of vultures. But then
Okay.
when they're eating dead animals, they're called a wake of vultures,
Yeah, okay.
which
Yeah.
is seeing that they have the distinctions there.
Yeah. When they're yeah, when they're actively eating dead things. Carrion. Carrion. Eating the carrion. But
No, but
anyway, so that
no, I was just gonna say, I completely agree. The vulture just looks wonky. It doesn't ever look good.
yeah.
And even if they just would have gotten it for like a live vulture for some snapshots, it would have benefited it
Yeah,
so much.
something. Yeah, even just to show the wings flying off or, somehow with their how many 41
Yeah.
you coulda done something.
So
Anyway.
there's also one other thing that I wanted to point out, with the exception of Pegasus and Bubbo. Sis is awful with all the gifts that he was given. He lost them all. Like he lost the sword, he lost the shield, he lost the helmet. I'm like, dude, like these are gifts from the gods, and you're just letting them go all over the place. Like, what are we doing over here?
He certainly wasn't selling them, making money. Because that's what I would have done. Thanks for
Yeah,
this helmet that makes me invisible. Like, that's
yeah.
the invisibility cloak from Harry Potter. I'd have been using that. So didn't
Well,
he isn't that what he used to get into the chamber?
yes.
Was he sneaking in there,
Hey,
right?
I did want to say that was the most Zeus thing that we saw Perseus do over
Mhm,
there, sneaking into Andromeda's room with the
mhm.
invisibility helmet. And Zeus is up there, that's my boy, that's
Totally.
my boy.
I sure showed him.
Yeah. Zeus walks so Percy can run over
Yeah.
here.
I was gonna say, like, in Andromeda's chamber and just some of the sets, what it reminds me of is a stage play. So when you do
Mm.
a stage play, because the fabrics that were around her bed were all shimmery, and for some reason it just looked like, and maybe this, and in they do the biblical shows from the 50s, and they made massive sets. Like the set of Cleopatra was just massive, and they built all of that stuff almost to scale, it looked like. But there's an element of Hollywood that the sets just look like giant stages and not necessarily realistic.
Isn't
And
that how it was with the Ten Commandments as well?
yeah. Yeah, all of those sword and sandal movies, I guess they call them, right?
Mm,
So just massive sets, but it's like a stage play. Because even the
yeah.
camera angles are very forward. In today's film, camera angles are all crazy. Like they got stuff looking up out of the ground, through a
Mhm.
hole, and
Drones.
yeah, drones. Like how'd they do that? They use a drone. But so I think that's when I think of the film, I think of the angles that we see. It just reminds me of that they filmed on a stage.
Yeah. Well, David is over here saying that Cleopatra almost bankrupted the first 24th
Yeah.
century, which is
Yes.
that's
It was a
crazy.
massive set. I don't know how
Yeah.
I know that, but I remember reading about it. So, but
Oh,
all those movies were like that, you
yeah.
know?
Well, they were investments, like, you had to like, it was an all or nothing sort of situation, and a lot of the technology was brand new, and, I mean, making movies were just so expensive as well, and so they
Mhm.
just needed to find a way to make sure that it actually happened, but
I wonder if we're gonna get an AI, fully AI movie of, Perseus. That'd be interesting. I don't know.
I
I have mixed feelings about all that, but I would say now I see more and more creators, calling themselves AI directors, and some of the Red Rising stuff that I've seen recently, probably in the last week or 2, I'm kind of a little bit blown away, like, "What?" I don't know if
and
I've
that's
sent it, but I'm like, "God, you did that with that looks exactly like what I saw in my head." And
and see, like
like,
oh,
I didn't think big enough. Most of the times I'm like, I did not envision the size of Lightbringer correctly. Like,
yeah,
it's 8 miles long.
it's a
Like, what
city.
the like, how I can't even imagine the physics of that. I don't even know. But anyway, I
No,
talk about AI.
it's definitely one of those things where, like, you see it and it's like, it is impressive when you see it, but at the same time, like, I don't want like, it's one of those things where I see the future that we're going towards, and I really see, like, how these like, I know that Hollywood really wants to replace a lot of their like, taking images of people and just start making AI films.
Mhm.
And I also know that I read this story and I don't remember how long ago it was, but it was that there's people that are just going into ChatGPT and they're writing kids books. They're like, "Hey, make a kids book about uh, a dinosaur and a bone
Mhm.
and generate photos." And they do that and then they just go and sell it on
Yeah.
Amazon and they're making and to me, like, that's just as somebody who's writes it for fun and doesn't really do it, like, to me, that just it makes me almost feel sick and ill just seeing and I'm
It
sure as well
it's a
where
lot.
you
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, in that space. So on Amazon has when you put a book Amazon really started to crack down on all of that. And people, I've messed around with AI, with ChatGPT, because in school, I have to decide about, like, did you write that or did AI write that? So you have to kinda know the technology you're dealing with. And I've never found it can't produce something, like, really by itself. He's like, "Write me an essay about whatever," which is what the kids do. But,
Yeah,
but when you look at the sentence construction, it's I don't know how to describe it, but it's, like, off a little bit.
yeah,
It's like, "Ooh,
and
that sounds really intelligent," but then when you try to decipher it, you're like, "What, does that make any sense? Like, what is that talking about?" So I
no,
don't I but people are my point is, I think, to your point, was that I think people are doing just that and using it to, like, give it a prompt, like, "Write me whatever," and it's turning out these books that are, people are reading them and they're not happy. It sounds like AI, but then a lot of other things, like every time I use the M dash, I'm like, oh my God, people are going to say I did AI. I've been using M dashes forever.
yeah.
And anyway.
Well, and here's the thing, like, I feel like and it's getting harder and harder to tell, but I feel like when I read something, I'm like, "Oh, there's some soul to this, like, this
Mhm.
does feel like it's genuine," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this email was definitely AI," or this
Yeah.
like and I'm sure that
Yeah.
you like, with being a teacher, like, I'm sure
Yeah.
it's that skill has been sharpened for you even
Well, the main thing is that most people don't speak with as large a vocabulary as what, like, AI could produce. Like, you don't talk like that. Like, I've
Yeah.
talked to you a lot of time. Like, You don't have big words like that. You can't even spell nefarious.
Quantum mechanics of this film was quite astronomically,
Yeah.
exponentially
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Like,
Or
yo,
like
what up?
when the boss puts out an email, that will have M dashes and like, dude, you don't even know how to use M dash. Like it's
Yeah,
used
it's not
correctly,
on your
but
table.
you didn't do that. You didn't do that. Yeah, you didn't write that. It's anyway. And here I am, like I'm tapping when I do like put captions. I'm like I hit the dash like 3 times and it gives me like an M dash because it's good. But my point is, I love M dashes, but that's the
Yeah,
thing now that people glom onto that. Everybody who's them, that's all AI. I was like, "No, it's actually not." And I'm a little rebellious, like, I'm gonna use more.
it's like, I'm gonna just
Gonna
every
get
single
it.
time I can put it in.
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, because if you hit the dash 3 times on a Google Doc, it'll turn into a M dash. It's so easy to do, and it's a great pause. It's better than a comma, especially in dialogue. Anyway, I digress.
Well,
Again,
well,
thank you for coming to your TED Talk where I got to speak.
well, on that note, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go ahead. Let's go ahead and jump into our dragon grade. Is that
Alright, let's
okay?
do it. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Each week we do a dragon grade concerning the dragon or creature that we cover in the film. We do have 5 categories that we grade in: design, special effect, character, film, and X factor. We scale on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being abysmal, 10 being incredible, and 5 being okay. Now, Janelle,
Mm,
we're going to be talking about the Kraken.
okay.
On a scale of 0 to 10, again, 0 being abysmal, 10 being incredible, what do you give the design of the Kraken in Clash of the Titans 1981?
I'm gonna give it a 6.
A 6? Okay.
Nostalgia to the Godzilla films of my youth.
That's totally fair. Is there anything in particular that you like about it other than the Godzilla look that it has?
Well, actually, that's kind of probably the biggest draw for me, 'cause it has the
Okay, okay.
sound. It's the sound too, like the whole.
Yes.
And I like how it pop I like the first when you see it and it's coming the wa it's probably like in a bathtub or a sink or something. It's all the
Just,
bubbles. Yeah,
it looks like the kids playing with it in a bathtub right
it's
there.
juiced or Poseidon. It's like
And we'll
doing the
talk more about that in the special effects there. No, no, don't be sorry, don't be sorry. I do think that especially when it gets released from its cage and you see its tail, like, propelling, like, I actually really like that and
Yeah.
love, like, the idea that it has just this massive, long, like, fin-like tail that's attached to it,
Mhm.
and it does have a fun Godzilla look to it. It's clearly not Godzilla, it's almost like the Spanish version of Godzilla because it looks like it has a mustache on its face, but I think that's just from its design there, so it's a little funny funky looking,
Uh,
and I also like that it has, I think, the 4 arms attached to it, so it's a very unique in that aspect. So I definitely don't have the nostalgia tied to it, but I still think that it was good. I think I'm giving it a 5.5. I don't give 0.5s out that often, but I think it's better than just okay, but I don't feel quite as comfortable giving it the 6 for the nostalgia's sake, but that's just on me there. But what do you give it on a scale of 0 to 10 for special effects?
I don't know. I might be at a 6 again.
A 6. Talk me
Yeah.
through it.
Well, I feel like it's cheesy. I mean, but it's a good cheesy. I like the color of it, I like the sound of it, so, I don't know. I feel like that's I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, you already highlighted this, and I'm just gonna highlight again. Like when it's moving through the water, it
Yeah.
definitely does just look like a kid is
Oh, okay,
playing.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know if we wanna talk about that again, but that's what it kinda but I liked it. I feel like
that,
that was kind of I don't know how they would have done it much different in the '80s. Like, if
yeah,
they put that if we were talking about that Kraken today, I would say, "Boo." Honestly, I would be like, that'd be like a 0. You did that with a Barbie Kraken. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I'm trying not to judge it by what we could do now by today's standards. So, like, you know what
yeah.
I mean?
I think the only thing that I would have done differently if I was in their position. Now, again, I know that these animals are so much harder to train than the horses and the owls. Yep, I've got Vivi's back.
Hi, baby.
But I definitely think that it would have been cool rather than zooming in on the puppet, they have like a crocodile that's moving in water and like they
Oh,
zoom in on the crocodile
I
and
thought
then
you were
when it
gonna
gets
say an iguana.
or I mean the iguana
You
works
know
too, like this.
those ones that swim? And the
Yeah.
Galapagos, yeah.
I think that it can definitely work on that front, but I wish they would have, like, leaned into using those animals a little bit more like they did with the
Mhm,
horse, like they did with
mhm.
the owl, because I think it could have worked. Again, like, it's not I'm not gonna sit here and say it sucked, it was bad, but
Yeah.
I do think that you're right, it looks silly at times, but I know that you just have that love for it because it looks silly. I, on the other hand, just don't have that tie to it, so
Yeah.
for me, I'm gonna give it a 4. I think it's mediocre, but again, like, I know that that's the time and the age, but I think I just see what they were doing throughout the film, and I think that they could have done something similar to what they were
Mhm.
doing for other
Yeah,
animals.
'cause they did make I did notice that a lot with the Pegasus and, like, to
Yeah.
show I wouldn't have thought about an alligator, that I wouldn't have thought of that, you
It
know?
would have been harder to train. I don't even think you can train an alligator, but if
No.
you, like, had it in water and, like, put some sort of, like, chicken or something across,
Yeah.
I'm
Hey,
sure.
Jacques Cousteau was around. Who was doing the they had the Wild Kingdom. National
Yeah,
Geographic was a thing in the '80s. Somebody has film of that somewhere. Or think about it.
we'll just go back in time and tell them that they need to go and do that.
Back then.
Alright, now for character, what do you
Mhm.
give the character of the Kraken, the 1981 Clash of the Titans?
His character. How do we judge a Kraken's character?
I'll be honest, I don't know really how you can.
Well, the Kraken serves its purpose as the scary thing, right? To eat the
Yeah,
princess. So I will have to say it's a necessary villain, basically. I gotta go with like a 5 or a 6.
okay. Just for the fulfillment of what it's
It has to
filling.
do what it's gotta do.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely right, and I do actually think that because it's portrayed as a titan and when they're discussing what the Kraken is. I
Uh-huh.
wish we could get a little bit more detail because the Titans were the gods before the gods, right? They
Mhm.
ruled the world and they were sentient beings, but we really don't get the sense that this is a sentient being. We get the sense
Mm-mm.
that it's a lot more similar to the
Godzilla.
Kraken. Like, yeah, like Godzilla or the Kraken in Pirates of the Caribbean. There's
Yeah.
actually a lot of parallels for the
Yeah.
Kraken in Pirates of the Caribbean
Yeah, now see
because
that I forgot about the Kraken in the Pirates of the Caribbean because that was scary.
yeah.
That didn't look cheesy,
No, it's terrifying. I
right?
actually went for an anniversary of the Pirates movies. They're showing them in theaters, and we went and saw Dead Man's Chest in theater, and just the scene at the end when the Kraken's, like, tearing the Black Pearl apart looks
Yeah.
so good,
Yeah.
and the detail is insane.
Mhm.
So, to that sense, it doesn't feel like it's a primordial god, it feels like it's a pet of Poseidon's. It just feels
Mhm.
like it does what Poseidon wants.
Mhm.
So I gotta give it a little bit of credit that it is like Poseidon's pit bull at that point where Poseidon just will stick it on whoever he
How about the
wants.
part where Poseidon's under this and he's just, like, looking up, like, that was cheesy. Like, what did they how did they he wasn't even in some water. They didn't even film that actor under the water. They just I don't know what they did, but
Put him in a pool at least.
yeah, they didn't even do that. And he's just like, "Oh, there goes my Kraken."
Like, "Oh, there he goes, off to
But
eat
his, like,
people."
hair was sticking up. I was just like, "What, did he put a fan on him?" Like, "What is that?"
That's probably what they did. They probably had a fan on him, but then they just slowed him down
And
and
it's like
like,
they put him on they put, like, the ocean behind him, but they were kinda made him fuzzy a little bit, like, "What are you doing?" Anyway,
I don't know.
yeah.
For me, like, again, like, he's fulfilling his purpose and he is following that level of, like, he is almost the executioner of the gods.
Mhm.
So, I do think that he has that. Again, I would have loved to see, especially as they presented him that he is a titan. He is a part of this enclave that were the gods before the gods. I would have loved to see a little bit of personality, even if it just talked. I think that would have made a
Mhm.
big difference. So
Mhm.
I'm giving it a 4 again there, but I totally see where you're coming from with your characterization there.
'Cause he had
Now
to d
this
it was fulfilling what he had to do.
yeah, now
How was Perseus gonna get Andromeda?
answer another riddle, I don't know.
That's true.
I'm excited for this next one,
Okay.
Janelle. For the score of the movie overall, what do you give it on a scale of 0 to 10? 0 being abysmal and 10 being incredible.
I think I will have to give it, like, a 6.
A 6.
Yeah,
Okay,
a
talk me
6
through the 6.
because overall now I'm judging it by, more modern. The cheesy parts I appreciate, the I don't think there was very good character development the way it could have been done. And that goes back to I feel like it was like a stage play that was being, filmed. So that's why. And there were moments in the film that I liked, just you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
But I I think that like Medusa would have been more scary. I don't know. I think
No,
they missed the boat. There was a lot of opportunity to tell that story even in the 80s, and I think it was like a B flick. As a teenager, obviously I liked it. I went to the movies to see it,
yeah.
but
Well, so I I hear where you're coming from, and I am also comparing it, and I know it's unfair to do so,
I
but I
know I
am
feel
comparing
bad.
it. But I'm also comparing it to like, okay, this is the year Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark came out, so you can compare
Uh-huh.
it to that. A
Uh-huh.
New Hope came out just a couple of years before. Like there's
Mhm.
these other just monstrously large successful films that are coming out and it just doesn't seem to really compete. But I
Mhm.
also think back and I'm just thinking of other films that came out in this time frame that I don't necessarily enjoy. And I did enjoy this movie. It's a
Yeah.
fun movie. I
Oh,
think it's
yeah.
a
Yeah.
I love the different practical effects that are doing. I think that for when it came out, for the budget of the film, I think it was very good. I think it's a
Mhm.
7. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of
Okay.
10.
Okay.
So, again, maybe I'm just seeing it with some rosy glasses over here, but I
That's okay. Well, I was thinking that you said Conan. Did Conan come out the next year?
yeah,
So
Conan
was
the
that
Barbarian.
and so isn't that the one that had the giant snake? Was it the first
I
one or
think so.
second one? So the giant snake was moving through because was it James Earl Jones was the bad guy in Conan, right?
Yes. I
Right?
think yes.
Because he was like the snake people that came and slaughtered his village that turned him into Conan. But
Yes.
that snake was big.
Mhm.
They could have done a Kraken. It wasn't that far off.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could have fulfilled the purpose there, and so it did
Is
come
it
out 2 years later, but
is that because the guy who did it, what was his name? Hausman? That was his last film?
yeah,
Is that
that
because
was
he was an old dude and so maybe he just was kinda stuck in the, like,
it might
more
have been.
antiquated sort of monster things?
He definitely could have been just caught up in that and not wanting to move on with the times, but at the same time, from what I've been seeing, he was quite a legend in the
Yeah.
film industry. But, um,
Mm,
Janelle, the last subject that we have here is X Factor. And
mm.
mind you, I just want to say, guys, I see what you guys have been talking about over there.
What
They've
are
been
they
on
talking about?
well, we
I
have an on
can't see any of it, so I don't know.
no, you're good, you're good. I have an ongoing joke that I'm trying to get a sponsorship deal with Bad Dragon, the adult toy company that has specially, products, and they just pointed out when I said, "Oh, generate a story about a dinosaur with a bone,"
Uh,
and they took that and they ran with it. They've been
oh
just
my
talking
god.
about and they've been just talking about dildos, they've been talking
Oh,
about plug
no.
my I've got a lot of perverts in the chat. I've got a lot of so I wanna say, I see what you guys are talking about. I'm just being an adult over here and trying to do a podcast over here. Nana just said, "Oh, thank God she
Probably
can't
what
see
there's probably a toy out there called the Kraken.
that I." Janelle, you don't have to be you don't have to worry about that at all. There is a Kraken.
No.
There's a lot of young professional women that have purchased the Kraken before. I'll
Oh
just
my
say that.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Back to the Dragon Green over here.
Yeah.
We have our X factor. That just makes it. This is determining the uniqueness of this particular monster. Again, I am quite curious to see. Nana's over here calling me out like, Bryce, you're one of us. Don't lie. So, Nana, we have a guest. We're trying to be professional.
I yeah, I can't tell my students I'm on a podcast and watch it and then talks about this. Never mind. Miss Keller, were you on some dragon podcast talking? No, absolutely not.
I think
Alter
it
ego.
was my twin. It was my
No.
twin. But X Factor, what do you grade the uniqueness of the Kraken in the 1981 uh, Clash of the Titans?
The uniqueness, I don't think it was all that unique. Sillish. I don't know, but they borrowed it. You said they physically borrowed it from somewhere else.
They cannibalized it from a couple
Are
other
we
monster movies, which that will be going into the effect, I think.
the X factor for the uniqueness? I don't know. Why does this feel so hard? I don't know.
Hey,
I feel bad. I feel bad like I'm dissing the Kraken.
no, you're good. Just give it your
But
honest
I
feeling.
feel like it wasn't that unique of a monster. I feel like it was kind of status quo. You know what I mean? Like it's what I would have expected. Like when the Kraken came out, what we were talking about in the Pirates of the Caribbean, like that was like, oh shit, that was creative. I didn't feel like it was very creative, so I'd have to give it a 4.
A 4.
Yeah. It was just like
I
any other monster. I didn't feel like it was that,
I hear you on that, and I do like we did just talk about that it looked like Godzilla, and it
Yeah.
was put together from other monsters that were pulled apart
Well, some of the
before.
monsters that Godzilla fought were more creative than this Kraken.
Yeah.
'Cause
I
you know what
also
I mean?
yeah, I will say I did appreciate that it had the 4 arms. I think that that made it pretty interesting. I loved the mustache that it looked.
Yeah.
But I think for me, and we didn't really see it in the shot, but again, the tail, when you could see it just
Mhm.
propelling itself,
Mhm.
I really liked that was going on there. So, and maybe I'm being a little too generous, but you know
Mhm.
what? What the heck? Why not? We can be a little
Your
generous
show,
over here.
you can do whatever you want, sir.
I gave it a 6 for the X
Oh,
factor.
okay.
So I think
I'm
that
gonna
it
have to
was
go look it up. I wanna see a picture of, like, the whole
of
I
everything
didn't th
there.
yeah, I didn't think to, like, look at the whole
It's a
I'm just imagining it was like a thing,
well, it definitely
like
was
a
like an
toy.
action figure. It
Yeah,
was
that's
like
what I
a
mean.
toy, but
Yeah.
I know they did something when it was, like, moving in the water and you only saw the tail, and
I wonder if that was a flipper,
I almost wonder if
like a
it is.
diving flipper thing, you know?
It looked honestly like one of those tails that the girls that will dress up as mermaids and, like, go to,
Yeah.
like, the water
Yeah.
parks. It looked a
Yeah.
little bit like that.
Yeah.
But we do have our final score that's been generated for the Kraken. So,
Okay.
the 1981 Kraken from Clash of the Titans ended with a score that's a 5.35, which is between good and okay, which I think is sort of appropriate for it.
Yeah, I think so. And that'll be interesting to see what we score for the next one.
We're definitely gonna so and that's what I also wanna say, like, next week when we talk about the 2010 version, we'll be comparing the scores, and we'll also just be comparing our thoughts on the movie in general, and I'll
Mhm.
actually save our film score for the last score that we do,
Okay.
so we can really have a discussion there. But, Janelle, thank you so much for coming on. I've had such a fun time discussing
Thanks for
and
having me.
no, of course. Where can my listeners find your stuff, and what do you wanna close us out with over there?
Sure. I have a podcast that deals with just Greek mythology. It's a little bit on the academic side about, it started as research for my books. And I thought, what am I going to do with all this research? So I made a podcast, and that's a Greek mythology retold. It's on all podcast platforms. You can find it. I think currently I'm sitting at number 2 in my genre.
Woo!
Think so.
Hell yeah.
But I mean, it's out. You can find it. And then I write books on the Homeric Chronicles about, it's epic fantasy crossed with a Trojan War. Those two things.
Wait, you like the Trojan War?
Yeah, I like. Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. And I'm going to finish up Lightbringer because I want to talk about somebody else's. I'm going to be on another podcast talking about Darrow and Achilles. I have a lot to say. I think there's, now that we know that Red God is not coming out this summer, I am so bummed I started Lightbringer. I'm so mad because I wanted to save it. I wanted to save it because I wanted to like have Red God right there. But now I'm just going to have to read Sanderson's like universe or something.
Have you not read Sanderson yet?
I have Way of Kings. I have a giant TBR. You have no idea. But if I were to show you, I have to get through. I have to get through my 5th and 6th book. They're already written, and I've got 2 4-inch binders like this that I have to. It's the rough draft. I got to do stuff. I don't have time to. I don't have time to read. I only read at night before I go to bed for like an hour. That's it.
No,
I
I
don't have time.
completely understand, but I do have to say the Stormlight Archives, which is the Way of Kings, is probably one of my favorite fantasy series. A lot
Yeah.
of people love the Mistborn series. And again, I haven't read the 3rd book, and everybody says the 3rd book's the best book.
Mm.
I am not as big of a fan of the Mistborn series, but people can crucify me for having that
Mm.
takeover
Well,
here.
I have is John Gwynne, Fury of the Gods, or what is that? I have the first book of. There's a dragon on the front of that one.
Yep, yep,
So I
that's
have
on my docket too.
I have a whole TBR of stuff that I'm trying to get to. But I got hooked into the Red Rising stuff, and then I just
He's so good.
I
Chris
know.
Aaron is so good.
I've never read as a writer, I'm so mad I didn't write that. Like, I'm so and I compare myself a lot to them, like, I'm obsessed with the book. I'm obsessed with these characters,
Hey, well, we don't compare ourselves to anybody, we only compare ourselves to who we used to be. That's
Yeah,
my
right?
say.
Let me show you. Oh, here's my
Oh, we got the Cassius pillow.
we do.
Is he your boo? Is he your boo?
He's my boo, I guess. Darrow's taken. So, actually, and I love Red Murphy is who did Red Murphy art did that. Carol, her name's Carolyn, but she did that art, and she I don't know if you're familiar with all her art, but she did a picture which I bought of Darrow, Severo, and Cassius, and they're all smiling and happy, and it's like, oh, you're killing me. So I bought that when I was, I think, somewhere in the middle of like Dark Age, and I was like, oh, I need that. And she just put out another one yesterday, and they're just smiling, and I'm like, these are the guys that are on the Archimedes, just
Fighting.
fighting and having a good time.
Well, that's also how I felt during Morningstar when they were
Yeah,
looking over Roke's, memories. Because again, Roke
yeah,
is just such a tragic character to me as
I
well.
know. Darrow
Oh,
mishandled that friendship. He mishandled Roke. And
yeah. He missed a lot.
I think and Rogue told him, like he said, like, something like, "You used me like a horse," which I
Yeah,
thought was like, yeah, he felt used. You didn't trust him. And then, you stabbed him in the neck and knocked him out at the gala. You shouldn't have
and
done that, dude. Because Rogue was like,
it
"I was gonna buy you." Like, but I think Rogue would have been more receptive to him, the truth of him being a red, had he befriended him the way that he had befriended Severo.
yeah, I think though that just we're gonna do a podcast where we only talk about Red
Sorry.
Rising because
Yeah, sorry.
I do wanna say this, I do think that because Roke was saying like, "Hey, Mustang was in love with you, Severo idolized you. I was the only person that was your actual friend and, like,
Mhm.
viewed you as a friend." And I do think that Darrow internalized that where he's like, he feels comfortable enough to tell Severo because Severo worships him, and he felt comfortable enough to tell Ragnar because Ragnar viewed him as a liberator. But I feel like with Roke, he was like, "What will he say? Like, I will lose him if I tell him." So I'm sure that
Yeah,
that
we lost him anyway. Well,
exactly.
he betrayed him. He betrayed him.
Oh,
So
we're gonna start crying again.
sorry. I don't think I ever read a book more that was in Golden Sun, right?
That was Golden Sun, yeah.
Yeah, that I remember reading Golden Sun and just because I read before bed, right? So many
Mhm.
times like, what the what? I would just stop reading and like lay the book just over my chest and just stare at the ceiling like, and I won't film, people film themselves having their reactions, but I don't know. I can't do that. But I would just
Yeah.
in my own self with my dogs, freaking my dogs out because 'cause I'll be like, "What the fuck?" And I have a husky shepherd and he gets up like, "Oh my god, what's wrong? What's wrong?" Like, "Get off of me. I'm just mad. You're a good boy. I'm just mad."
Yeah, I definitely don't want my mom seeing me drop F-bombs, me reacting like, "You fucking cocksucker whore! Rogue the jackal!"
Jackal is just awful. And the fact that he came back as the abomination, again, we're talking about Red Rising, but the in
Spoiler alert.
the way that Pierce Brown is able to get the interiority of a character is like, God, that's a skill. And
Yeah.
he said that he has 1,000 pages written of Red God. And I watched him in a book. He was at a book signing. I'm gonna actually see him and Ryan Cahill next week.
Oh, awesome.
I know. So who knows what he'll say then. I'll let you know if he says any tidbits. But he was at another book signing thing and he said the same thing. And he just was talking with Maud and saying that, he's got 1,000 pages written, but he doesn't feel like it's missing the vibe. It's not ready.
He's
So
like,
he
"I wanna
hasn't,
hurt readers more.
yeah,
I
he
want."
hasn't. And so that means that if he has 1,000 pages, he knows who's gonna die. He already knows,
Yeah.
and what we do know is the song "Hurt" is supposed to be there, which is why I think Darrow's gonna die. Darrow has to
Yeah.
die.
I I'm not gonna
I don't want him to. I don't want him to, don't get me wrong. But
well, before
here's the reason why I say that too, is that the thing that makes Achilles go berserk, because Achilles becomes a berserker at the end.
yeah.
And is because Patroclus is killed, and Patroclus was his second. Whether or not you want to believe that, if they were lovers or not, their relationship was close. And I think that if you've been fighting with somebody from a soldier standpoint, if you've been fighting, you've been eating, sleeping, Saki City, you've been facing life or death situations with somebody for 10 years, basically, you're close. And he had the guilt because he knows that he sent Patroclus, like, they sort of say it in the myth. People misunderstand. Like everybody knew it was Patroclus. The only people who didn't know it was Patroclus was the Trojans. The Greeks
Yeah.
knew. The Greeks knew it was Patroclus in Achilles' armor. Achilles knew it was Patroclus in his armor because he gave him the armor as a joke, kind of like, yeah, okay. if you go out and you do this. And then Achilles came out and actually addressed the men, and that's in the Iliad, right? So he came out and addressed the men. So they knew that Patroclus was wearing Achilles' armor. So Achilles had a tremendous amount of guilt because he told him, go this far, but don't chase Hector to the city, because Hector is more, Hector's got the favor of the gods. He has Apollo's favor. So don't follow him, and of course, and Hector was and Patroclus was kicking Hector's ass. And the only reason that Patroclus lost was because Apollo invisibly slapped Hector on the back, or slapped Patroclus on the back, and made all the armor fly off. He was exposed. So, and Achilles had guilt about that, so he goes berserker, which if Darrow is like Achilles, that means that somebody that close to Darrow has to die, so that he goes berserker. And then once that happens, he's then a liability to himself. I think Lysander's going to kill him.
I don't want to be Lysander, though. That's the thing. But the thing is,
but then that's where Pax comes in. Pax will be the one to kill Lysander. And so here's what I think is going to happen. I think Severo's going to die. It has to be Severo, because Cassius is already going to be dead. I already know that. I already know that sorry, spoiler. But I just have enough posts that I've seen, okay, I know it's coming. But but even that isn't enough to send Darrow into that state. You know what I mean?
What about Mustang, though?
It could be Mustang, but I don't think it would hurt as much as to the readers. It has to be somebody who's fought with Darrow side by side, and the only person that Darrow, I think, feels that level of commitment to, fighting in the field, because he hasn't been fighting in the field with Mustang.
Yeah,
it's been Severo. And when Severo left his side, remember when Severo's like, I'm out of here, man, that Darrow floundered without Severo, in my opinion, on Mercury. He floundered.
No, I will say this, though, I agree that it probably will be Severo.
I don't want it to be.
I don't want it to be either, but the only reason, the main reason I don't think it will be Severo, for the parallels with Achilles with Darrow, is because Victra is just as dangerous. She's and if Severo dies, she is going to she will go out in a blaze of glory.
She'll burn the world down. But yeah. I think Darrow would do the vengeance part, because he will tell her that she has to be there for their kids. Unless
Victra dies, and that's what sends Severo into a rage, and he goes all ballistic, and that's how okay, we're getting dark. Janelle, thank you so much for
thank you. All right. I had a great time.
We're going to be back next week to talk about the 2010 Clash of the Titans. Until then, please go check out her podcast, check out her writings. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, share with your mom, share with your dad, share it with a friend, share it with a comrade that could possibly be a gay lover. We're not sure. Who knows? Up to her historical interpretation. But until then, peace out, guys.
Bye. Thanks.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at BigLizPod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.